Chapter 1106. Loud laughter rang out. A middle-aged man walked into the courtyard. Sir Potion's expression changed slightly when he saw the middle-aged man. He smiled and said, "Master Sima, why are you here?" Sima II, the sect master of the Five Elements sect. Sir Potion wasn't surprised at all. No matter what, this was the Five Elements city, the headquarters of the Five Elements sect. As the young master of the Thousand Beasts sect, it would be strange if he didn't get discovered by the Five Elements sect. Potion, why didn't you come to the Five Elements sect? You're treating me like an outsider. Sima II said casually, not like a sect master at all. Sir Potion couldn't sense Longao's aura, but that didn't mean Sima II couldn't. However, Sima II acted as if nothing had happened and didn't say a word. "Master Sima, I'm just here to take a look." He waved his hand. Before Sir Potion could speak, Sima II continued, "Potion, I already know everything about you and your second uncle." This time, Sir Potion was truly shocked to the extreme. Sima II stopped laughing and sat down when he saw Sir Potion didn't speak. "Potion, I also know that your second uncle is colluding with the sect leader of the Metal Element sect. However, this is still the Five Element sect. If you attack here, you're looking down on the Five Element sect. Uncle Sima, since things have come to this point, I won't hide it anymore. The grudge between me and my second uncle must be settled. In the Thousand Beasts sect, second uncle didn't dare to do anything, so he could only collude with the Metal Element sect master to deal with me." Sima II didn't say anything. "Uncle Sima, if it were you, what would you do?" Sima II knew things were bad when he heard Sir Potion call him uncle. Sir Potion's intention was very clear. He wanted to use his father's relationship to settle this matter. Sima II could ignore Sir Potion, but how could he not respect the Thousand Beasts sect master? "Potion, I'll settle this. Don't continue." "Uncle Sima." Waving his hand, Sima II's face darkened. He said in a deep voice, "From now on, the leader of the Metal Element sect will not collude with your second uncle. As for the grudge between you and your second uncle, forgive me for being powerless." Sir Potion knew very well that if he continued like this, not only would Sima II not give him any face, but he would also not give his father any face. He stood up. Sir Potion didn't say anything more. He turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared without a trace. "Who exactly are you?" Now that things had come to this, Longao did not continue to hide. His soul returned to his body and entered the courtyard. "Sir? Black Wolf." "Black Wolf?" Sima II, the sect master of the Five Elements sect, was unfamiliar with the name Black Wolf. No matter how he thought about it, he could not recall who the Black Wolf was. In front of the Five Elements sect, there are five element stone steels. You can enter and verify your Five Elements sensing ability. If you can trigger even one of the Five Element stone steels, you can become a core disciple of the Five Element sect. At that time, when you enter the Five Element sect, it will be of great help to your Five Elements Tao. Longao was not stupid. He knew what Sima II meant. They wouldn't help him for nothing, and they wouldn't let him enter the Five Elements sect for nothing. Although he didn't know what the Five Element stone tablet was, Longao was very clear that it wouldn't be an easy thing to trigger the five sides of the Five Element stone tablet. Longao did not want to enter the Five Elements sect, nor did he want to become a disciple of the Five Elements sect. He did not want to have anything to do with the Five Elements sect. However, the main purpose of entering the Five Elements city this time was to verify his knowledge of the Five Elements heaven-devouring incantation and comprehend it. Since that was the case, he had to think of all kinds of methods to verify his Five Elements heaven-devouring incantation. "Black Wolf, I have already said so much. It is up to you whether you want to go or not." Sima II stood up and disappeared from the courtyard. From the beginning to the end, Sima II did not put Longao in his eyes. However, Longao's gloomy aura had surprised the sect leader of the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, with Sima II's status, he would not even look at Longao. Looking at Sima II, who had already disappeared, Longao fell into deep thought. He did not know whether he should go or not. From the beginning to the end, he had never thought of entering the Five Elements sect. Once he entered and became a disciple of the Five Elements sect, Regardless of whether he was willing or not, trouble would come endlessly. This was a chance. The five elements heaven-devouring incantation was a super martial skill that he had sensed from the five elements primal chaos stone steels. Longao would definitely not be willing to waste it. Otherwise, he would not have come to the five-element city to verify his five elements Tao and cultivate the five elements heaven-devouring incantation. Go. In the end, Longao decided to go to the five-element sect and try the five-element stone steels that Sima too had mentioned. He wanted to see if he could activate the five-element stone steels. If he entered the five-element sect, then he would find a chance to verify his five elements Tao. Outside the five-element city, Shirpatian looked at the five-element city in front of him. He was unwilling to give up because his plan this time was flawless. As long as there were no accidents, killing his second uncle would not be a problem. However, the sect leader of the five-element sect had personally come. If he continued, he would not be giving Sima two-face and provoking the five-element sect. If Sima two really turned hostile, then wouldn't it lead to a war between the five-element sect and the Wanshou sect? Second uncle, don't think that you can sit back and relax just because Sima two is here. I will let you know the consequences of provoking me. Young master, what should we do now? Follow the original plan. Hearing the young master's words, the disciple of the Wanshou sect was startled. He said with some fear, "Young master, Sima too has already come. If we continue to attack, I'm afraid we will make him unhappy. At that time, we will be in big trouble." Shirpatian nodded. Regarding this matter, how could he not know? He said, "That old man wants to kill me. If I don't fight back, he will really think that I am afraid of him. This time, not to mention Sima too, even if the Heavenly Emperor comes, I will kill him." Since the matter had already reached this point, the disciple of the Wanshou sect did not dare to continue and could only agree. On the city wall of the five-element city stood two people. They were the sect leader of the five-element sect, Sima Tu, and the vice leader of the five-element sect, Su Hai. Seeing that Shirpatian had not left, Sima Tu said in a gloomy voice, "If you do this, you will provoke a war between the five-element sect and the Wanshou sect. At that time, how will we deal with it?" Although Su Hai was the sect leader of the metal element sect, his status was not on the same level as Sima Tuesday. He thought for a moment and said, "Sect leader, I just want them to fight each other. At that time, our five-element sect will be the fisherman who reaps the benefits." Foolish. Sima Tu cursed and continued, "The grudges between the two of them are their family matters. If we intervene, do you think the Wanshou sect will agree?" Sect leader. Sima Tu waved his hand and said, "This matter ends here. Even if both of them die here, it has nothing to do with us. Do you understand?" Even if Su Hai was unwilling in his heart, he did not dare to say anything. However, he was very unwilling. Things had already reached this point. If he were to give up, not to mention him, even if it was someone else, would they be willing to do so? Author's note: I have been too busy these past 2 days. I have to find some time to write a few chapters. Tomorrow, Xiaoju will try to write a few more chapters. Chapter 1107. The Five-Element Sect was one of the 10 pillars. The Five Elements Peak was a huge peak that reached the sky. There were peaks within peaks. The 5 peaks surrounded the huge peak in the middle. In the southeast of the Five Elements Sect, there were 5 giant stone tablets: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. 5 stone tablets. Every year, the Five Elements Sect would recruit disciples. No matter who it was, they would have to walk through the 5 Elements stone tablet. As long as they could draw out a trace of the 5 Elements stone tablet's aura, they would be able to enter the 5 Elements sect and become a disciple. The 5 Elements stone tablet was open. No matter who it was, they could enter the 5 Elements stone tablet and sense it. Under normal circumstances, Longao would not be stopped when he arrived at the 5 Elements peak. Outside the 5 Elements stone tablet, 2 5 Elements disciples, Stone and Dahai, were guarding in front of the 5 Elements stone tablet. "Wait, who are you?" "Black Wolf. I want to enter the 5 Elements stone tablet and sense it." "Black Wolf?" Disdain and contempt appeared on their faces. They sneered and said, "Kid, the 5 Elements stone tablet is not open to the public for the time being. You should leave." not open to the public. Looking at the few people who had just entered, Longao already knew what was going on. The two of them obviously looked down on him and did not want him to enter the five-element stone tablet. They looked down on people. The sect leader of the five-element sect, Sima too, asked me to come and sense the five-element stone tablet. Hearing the other party's words, the two five-element sect disciples laughed crazily. From time to time, they would mock and look down on others. They would even stop some people from entering the five-element stone tablet. Many people would find all sorts of reasons to enter the five-element stone tablet to sense it and to enter the five-element sect to become a disciple. They were used to it. However, this was the first time they heard of the sect leader. "Kid, is there something wrong with your head? The sect leader asked you to come? Who the F***ck do you think you are? What a joke. Get lost. If you have the ability, you can ask the sect leader to come. I want to see if you know the sect leader." Looking at the two of them in disdain, Longao felt pity for them. If the sect leader of the five-element sect, Sima too, really came, would they be like this? They would probably be scared shitless. He couldn't be bothered with the two of them. Longao came to the five-element sect this time, mainly to try to sense the five-element stone tablet. If he could enter the five-element sect, it might not be a bad thing. Only the five-element sect could help him with the five elements heaven-devouring art. That was indeed the case. Longao decided that no matter what happened, he had to enter the five-element stone steel. He forced his way in. Dahai and Stone were shocked when they saw that the other party wanted to barge in. After all, this was the five-element sect. Who would dare to barge in here? Such a thing had never happened before. "Brat, you're courting death." Boom. Before the two of them could react, Longao's body had already disappeared. Their bodies paused for a second before falling heavily to the ground. Their faces were filled with shock. Putting aside the other party's strength, just the fact that the other party dared to make a move was already a provocation to the five-element sect. If news of this were to spread out, where would their reputation go? Where would the five-element sect's face go? "Brother Dahai, what should we do now?" "Report to the sect immediately. I want to see how this person will die." The two of them were almost certain that once this matter was reported to the sect, the other party would definitely die. However, there were too many people in the five-element stone tablet. After all, there were too many people who wanted to enter the five-element sect. Moreover, the five-element sect would not casually interfere with the sensing of the five-element stone tablet. Therefore, even if the sect wanted to interfere, they would have to wait for the other party to come out. Inside the five-element stone tablet, the five-element stone steels were like the 5 fingers of a palm. Each steel was about 100 meters long, and the distance between each steel was very far. In this way, the five-element stone steels could accommodate many people. The five-element sect had a clear rule. No matter who it was, even if it was a disciple of the five-element sect, they could not enter the five-element stone tablet for more than a day. Moreover, if they did not succeed this time, they would have to wait for at least 3 months before they could try again. There were too many people who wanted to enter the five-element stone steel. If someone occupied the five-element stone steel for 1 year, 3 years, or even 10 years, then the five-element sect wouldn't have any new blood to enter, and wouldn't it slowly decline? Metal element stone tablet, wood element stone tablet, water element stone tablet, fire element stone tablet, earth element stone tablet. There were many people standing in front of the metal element stone tablet, wood element stone tablet, water element stone tablet, earth element stone tablet. Everyone stood in front of the five-element stone tablet and quietly closed their eyes, quietly sensing the power of the five elements. No matter who it was, as long as they could trigger the energy fluctuation of any of the five-element stone tablet, they could join the five-element sect. If someone could trigger 2 or more stone tablets, not only could they become a disciple of the five-element sect, they could also become a disciple that the five-element sect would focus on nurturing. That was exactly the case. Anyone who entered the five-element stone tablet wanted to sense the fluctuation of the five-element stone tablet, hoping to join the five-element sect. According to the rules of the five-element sect, those who entered the five-element stone tablet, no matter who it was, no matter what kind of grudge they had, even if it was someone who killed their father, they were not allowed to attack. However, anyone who was discovered, no matter who it was, would be killed immediately. Even if it was the sect master of the five-element sect, it was the same. 5 Elements Stone Tablet. Those who could sense one of the stone tablets could enter the 5 Elements sect and become a disciple of the 5 Elements sect. 5 Elements Stone Tablet. Those who could sense 2 of the stone tablets would be heavily nurtured by the 5 Elements sect and become a core disciple. 5 Elements Stone Tablet. Those who could sense 3 of the stone tablets would almost become the flesh of the 5 Elements sect. There was no need to describe how valuable it was. 5 Elements Stone Tablet. Those who could sense 4 of the stone tablets were 1 in a million. There was almost no one in the 5 Elements sect. In the past 100 years, there were only a few people who could sense 4 of the stone tablets at the same time. There was no need to mention the status of such people in the 5 Elements sect. 5 Elements Stone Tablet. Other than the old ancestor who founded the 5 Elements sect, no one else could sense 5 of the stone tablets. According to legend, if someone could trigger 5 of the stone tablets at the same time, the 5 stone tablets would release light at the same time. The light of the 5 attributes would be linked together to form the 5 Elements light. In the past 10,000 years, no one was able to do it. Since he had already entered the 5 Elements stone tablet, Longao did not hesitate. He immediately came to the front of the metal tablet and closed his eyes. He began to comprehend quietly, hoping to trigger the metal tablet. The 5 Elements stone tablet only lasted for a day. In the dense crowd, no one spoke and no one moved. They just found a spot and began to comprehend. Outside the 5 Elements stone tablet. Big brother, why didn't we report this to the sect? Gue Mei, the core disciple of the 5 Elements sect, was the big brother of the two. His cultivation had already broken through the black grade great sovereign realm, and his status in the 5 Elements sect was not bad. The two of them could not understand why this matter was not reported to the sect. Chapter 1108. He waved his hand. Gue Mei laughed coldly. So what if I report to the sect? When he comes out, I will make him wish he was dead. Hearing their brother's words, Big C and Stone were overjoyed. Gue Mei and the other two did not leave. They guarded the 5 Elements stone steel, waiting for Black Wolf to appear. As for Sima too, he had long forgotten about Black Wolf. In the eyes of the 5 Elements sect's sect master, Hei Lang was nothing in his eyes. The reason why Sima too wanted Black Wolf to head to the 5 Elements sect to sense the 5 Elements stone steel was because he was shocked by his dark aura. As for his strength and identity, Sima too believed that if it was anyone else, they would choose to ignore him too. Within the 5 Elements stone steel, Longao's soul power slowly tried to enter the metal steel. South. Before Longao could react, his soul had already entered the metal element steel. Regarding this point, Longao really did not think of it. 5 Elements Chaos Stone Steel. The moment Longao's soul entered the metal steel, the Chaos Stone Steel in his Dantian reacted. Instantly, Longao already knew what had happened. It turned out that the 5 Elemental stone tablet in front of the 5 Elemental door was created by someone who had comprehended the 5 Elemental Chaos Stone tablet and created a fake 5 Elemental Chaos Stone tablet. Furthermore, the fake 5 Elemental Chaos Stone tablet was split into 5 parts and forcefully created the 5 Elemental stone tablets of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Could it be the old ancestor of the 5 Elements sect? Thinking about this, Longao was really shocked. He admired the old ancestor of the 5 Elements sect. To be able to do this, how many people in this world could do it? Longao was sure that the old ancestor of the 5 Elements sect had definitely seen the 5 Elements Chaos Stone Steel. Otherwise, the old ancestor of the 5 Elements sect would not be able to create a replica of the 5 Elements Chaos Stone Steel. Too powerful. Master, there's no need for me to tell you. I believe you should know what's going on. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sense it well. As long as you can comprehend the 5 sides of the Chaos Stone Steel, it will bring you indescribable benefits in terms of comprehending the true 5 Elements Chaos Stone Steel. Nodding. As for what Long Fu said, how could Longao not know? Without any hesitation, he immediately started to comprehend the 5 Elements Stone Steel. After entering the metal elemental stone steel, as long as one could comprehend it, there was no need to head to the other stone steels. No matter what, Longao's Dantian contained the true 5 elemental chaos stone tablet. This was something that Sima too wouldn't believe even if he was beaten to death. Otherwise, Sima too would have directly snatched it away. 5 Elements Peak. Inside the 5 Elements Hall. At this moment, in the 5 Elements Great Hall, other than the sect leader of the 5 Elements sect, Sima too, who was sitting at the head of the table, there were 5 other people sitting below. Among them was the sect leader of the Metal Element sect, Su Hai. The 5 branches of the 5 Element sect were also the 5 vice sect masters. They were respectively the Metal Element sect master Su Hai, the Wood Element sect master Gu Feng, the Water Element sect master Luo Ningxue, the Fire Element sect master Bai Yushi, and the Earth Element sect master Wu Ling. Among the 5 deputy heads, only the Water Element sect's head was a woman. I believe all of you already know about this matter. Tell us, what should we do next? The 5 vice sect masters were well aware of the matter the sect leader mentioned. However, Su Hai was very clear about this matter. Since the sect leader didn't say it out loud, there was no need for him to leak this matter. The Wood Element sect master Gu Feng coughed twice and said solemnly, "Sect master, the grudge between Shirpatian and his second uncle has nothing to do with our 5 Elements sect. There is no need for us to provoke the 1,000 Beasts sect over this matter." Brother Gu is right. The Earth Element sect master Wu Ling added, "The 1,000 Beasts sect claims to be in charge of all spiritual beasts in the world. Falling out with the 1,000 Beasts sect is not beneficial to our 5 Elements sect. Sect master, although there is no need for our 5 Elements sect to interfere in this matter, if the 2 of them start a war in our territory and cause a huge commotion at that time, even if our 5 Elements sect doesn't want to interfere, it will be impossible." Nodding his head, Sima too was worried about this point. Between the 2 of them, one was the 1,000 Beasts sect master's younger brother, and the other was the 1,000 Beasts sect master's son. If something happened to the 2 of them in the 5 Elements sect's territory, just as Wu Ling said, even if the 5 Elements sect wanted to stay out of this matter, they would not be able to do so. What do you all think we should do? Sect master, in the current situation, we only have one solution. Everyone turned to look at the Earth Element sect leader, Wu Ling. They wanted to see what the only solution was. Sect master, if we want to stay out of this matter, the only way is to drive Shirpatian and his second uncle out of the 5 Element city. This way, although we will offend the 2 of them, it will save us a lot of trouble. Hearing Wu Ling's words, everyone fell into deep thought. For a moment, the entire 5 Elements Great Hall was silent. No one spoke. Time trickled by. After an unknown period of time, Sima too finally said, "We will do as you say. Later, the 5 of you will attack together. Whether the 2 of them are willing or not, drive them out." Boom! The entire 5 Elements sect trembled for a moment before returning to normal. The 6 people who were discussing important matters in the 5 Elements Great Hall trembled slightly. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. 5 Elements Light. Following Sima too's exclamation, the 6 of them disappeared at the same time and reappeared in front of the 5 Elements Great Hall. They looked at the 5 different colored lights that suddenly appeared in the distance. The gold elemental energy, white elemental energy, green elemental energy, water elemental energy, blue elemental energy, fire elemental energy, red elemental energy, earth elemental energy, and yellow elemental energy. The 5 elemental energy, 5 elements reincarnation, formed the 5 Elements Light. The 6 of them knew clearly what it meant when the 5 Elements Light suddenly appeared on the 5 Elements Stone Steel. Sect Master, in the history of our 5 Elements sect, other than our old ancestor who could comprehend the 5 Elements Stone Steel at the same time, there has never been a second person. The 5 Elements Light that hasn't appeared for 10,000 years has finally appeared. This. They were so excited that they couldn't speak coherently. After all, the 5 Elements Light hadn't appeared for 10,000 years. This meant that the person who could comprehend the 5 Elements Stone Steel at the same time had talent and potential comparable to their old ancestor. Once such a super genius was accepted into the 5 Elements sect, he would definitely shine brightly in the future. Moreover, the 5 Elements sect would also forcefully rise. This was an opportunity given by the heavens to the Five Elements sect. The Five Elements light that hadn't appeared for 10,000 years. Sima too was so excited that he couldn't speak. The six of them looked at each other and disappeared from the Five Elements Great Hall, heading towards the Five Elements Stone Steel. Not only the six of them, but even the other disciples and elders of the Five Elements sect were looking at the Five Elements Stone Steel. Everyone knew what the Five Elements light represented. It had not appeared for 10,000 years. Some people were envious, some were jealous, some were excited, and some were happy. There were all kinds of people and all kinds of emotions. Chapter 11:09. Five Elements Stone Steel, Nine Heavens Void. 5 different colors of light intertwined, forming the Five Elements light that had not appeared for 10,000 years. The Five Elements light formed the Five Elements cycle. Outside the Five Elemental Stone Steel, 6 figures appeared. They looked at each other. Even now, the 6 of them were still unable to calm down. Sect Master, are we going in? He waved his hand. Sima too finally calmed down after being excited for a long time. No one is allowed to enter the Five Elements Stone Steel. Remember, from now on, seal off the news. Other than the person who drew out the Five Elements light, take everyone else in. Sect Master. Before the other 5 could speak, Sima too continued. Once the others know about this, they will definitely think of various ways to kill this person. Therefore, this matter cannot be leaked. Do you understand? The 5 nodded. The 5 of them were not fools. They knew what was going on. The person who drew out the Five Elements light could be said to be the most important person in the Five Elements sect in the past 10,000 years. Once such a person grew up, he could lead the Five Elements sect to rise. At that time, it would not be difficult for the Five Elements sect to surpass the other 9 super forces. The Five Elements sect immediately sealed off the news. In other words, the Five Elements sect had completely sealed off the news that the Five Elements light had not appeared for 10,000 years. Sima too and the other 5 waited quietly in front of the Five Elements Stone Steel. They were very excited because the 6 of them wanted to see who the person who could draw out the Five Elements light was. The Five Elements light cycled for 6 hours before gradually disappearing into the 9 heavens void. It has finally disappeared. Notify everyone in the Five Elements Stone Steel to come out. Understood, Sect Master. Longao's soul exited the Five Elements Stone Steel. From the beginning to the end, no one knew what had happened. This was because what Longao had done was done in the Five Elements Stone Steel. Everyone, leave the Five Elements Stone Steel. No matter who you are, you can become a disciple of the Five Elements sect. Hearing the sudden voice, everyone's face lit up. Without any hesitation, they immediately filed out. Longao, who was at the back, naturally knew what had happened. The fact that he had activated the Five Elemental Stone Steel and formed the Five Elemental Light should have already shocked the entire Five Elemental sect. If it were him, he would definitely have found out about it as well. Longao followed behind everyone and slowly left the Five Elements Stone Steel. Outside the Five Elements Steel, there were more than 1,000 people walking out of the Five Elements Stone Steel. At a glance, the crowd was densely packed. If they did not take the initiative to admit it, it would be impossible to find the culprit among thousands of people. Looking at the thousands of people, Sima too did not feel troubled at all. In his opinion, those who could trigger the Five Elements light would definitely want to enter the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, they would just be trash if they left. The light of the Five Elements was very important to the Five Elements sect, but it was nothing to other places. Who drew out the light of the Five Elements just now? Sima too did not hide anything because what happened just now was not only seen by the 6 of them, but also by the other members of the Five Elements sect, including the cleaner. Even if he wanted to hide it, he would not be able to. However, Sima too had already thought of a countermeasure. As long as he kept the news a secret, it would not be difficult for others to find out. It was because of this that he decided that anyone who entered the Five Elements Stone Steel could become a disciple of the Five Elements sect regardless of whether they sensed it or not. Light of the Five Elements? When the people who came out heard sect leader Sima's words, their faces changed. Although they were not disciples of the Five Elements sect, They knew what the light of the five elements meant. Everyone looked at each other because they already knew why they were able to enter the five elements sect for no reason. In the end, they were all basking in the limelight. Otherwise, it would not be easy to enter the five elements sect and become a disciple of the five elements sect. No one admitted it. Looking at the thousands of people in front of them, no one stood out. Sima too, and the others were depressed. If no one admitted it, it would be difficult to find out the truth. Sect leader, what should we do? The five vice sect leaders looked serious. Thousands of people stood in front of them, and each of them had a blank expression on their faces. They did not seem to know who it was. If I'm not wrong, even the person himself would not know if he triggered the five elements stone steel. The five vice sect leaders nodded. It seemed like this was the only explanation. Everyone, enter the sect. We will observe slowly and see who exactly triggered all five sides of the five elements stone steel. Next, the thousands of people were arranged to enter the five elements sect. No matter who it was, no one was allowed to leave the five elements sect without knowing the truth. From the beginning to the end, Sima too did not recognize Longao. Sima too did not put Longao in his eyes at all. He had already forgotten everything that happened before. Longao followed everyone into the five elements sect and was arranged to be alone. The thousands of people were very excited because it was not important who triggered the five elements stone steel. What was important was that they could enter the five elements sect and become a disciple of the five elements sect. In the eyes of the five elements sect's disciples, they looked down on the thousands of people. The reason was simple. The thousands of people did not trigger the five elements stone steel to enter the five elements sect. They entered the five elements sect with the help of a mysterious person. Therefore, these people were destined not to become a core disciple of the five elements sect. In the main hall of the five elements sect, Sima too and the other five vice sect leaders sat in their seats. Their faces were serious and filled with excitement. Have you found out who it is? In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Even so, the five elements sect still could not find out who triggered the five elements stone steel among the thousands of people. Therefore, they could not find a solution to the problem. If this continued, what was the point of whether this person existed or not? Sect leader, we still can't find out who it is. Just like what you said, it seems like even the person himself does not know about it. I have checked the thousands of people and even checked 30 times, but there is still no clue. Hearing the wood element sect leader's words, everyone's face became more serious. If that was the case, this matter would be very troublesome. From now on, focus on cultivating the thousands of people. I believe that the person who triggered the five elements stone steel is very talented. I believe that he will soon stand out from the thousands of people. Pay attention. The five of them stood up at the same time and respectfully bowed. Sect leader, we will do it right away. The five of them were very clear about the seriousness of this matter. They immediately left the main hall and began to prepare. They hoped to find this person in the shortest time possible. P.S. The third chapter has been delivered. It will explode tonight. At least 5 chapters. At least 8 chapters will be updated today. If it didn't concern him, he would just let it go. The main reason he had entered the five elements sect this time around was to verify his Tao of the five elements and cultivate the five elements heaven-devouring mantra. With that, there was no need for him to cause any trouble for himself. All of you, listen carefully. You are nothing more than trash. The reason why you were able to enter the five elements sect is because the sect master is kind and is willing to take in trash like you. You're the trash. What right do you have to call us trash? Some people were afraid, while others weren't. Some people didn't want to cause trouble, while others weren't afraid of it. Even though they knew that they were no match for the other party, there were still people who stood out. Just as they stood out, they were beaten back by the five elements sect's disciples. Zhang Fei sneered and said coldly, "Teach them a good lesson. Remember, make sure they remember this." Just as Zhang Fei finished speaking, everyone behind him rushed out. The gap between the two parties was too big. It was almost a one-sided situation. Black Wolf, we meet again. Weren't you very arrogant before? Now, I would like to see if you can be arrogant again. No one dared to deal with Longao because Gue Mei and the other two had already surrounded Longao. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there was a grudge between the two parties. If anyone interfered, wouldn't they be looking for trouble with Gue Mei? With Gue Mei's strength and identity, no one was willing to provoke him. Moreover, there were over 1,000 of them. Even if it was a one-on-one battle, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Looking down on others with your dog eyes. You don't know what's good for you. Your head must have been kicked by a donkey. Longao didn't want to cause trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. These two people came to cause trouble. If he let them go just like that, how could he survive in the Five Elements sect in the future? You're courting death. With Gue Mei here, the two of them didn't believe that Black Wolf would dare to be impudent. Unless he was courting death. Dahai and Rockhead knew that Black Wolf wouldn't dare to make a move. Therefore, the two of them moved at the same time. In a flash, they had already arrived in front of Longao. Both of their palms struck out fiercely. Two blood-curdling screams were heard. Before the two of them could react, their bodies were like kites with a broken string. They were thrown out fiercely. Poochie, spitting out blood, the two of them struggled to get up from the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The two of them never thought that the other party would dare to make a move in front of Gue Mei. However, the two of them didn't know that Longao was merciful because of the Five Elements sect. Otherwise, with Longao's current strength, the two of them would be dead by now. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, I have to admit that you are really arrogant. You dare to hurt people in front of me, Gue Mei. Gue Mei's figure flashed. His speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Longao. His palms filled the sky. At a glance, there were palms everywhere. From this, it could be seen that Gue Mei's strength wasn't simple. Wiping the blood from the corner of their mouths, Dahai and Rockhead sneered. With Gue Mei personally making a move, even if Black Wolf had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to survive. Gue Mei's strength was there for all to see. What happened in the end? Gue Mei's ending was almost exactly the same as the two of them. He left quickly and returned even faster. This time, Longao didn't show any mercy. Kacha, kacha. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Gue Mei had already fainted. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Looking at Gue Mei who was lying on the ground, no one knew if he was dead or alive. Dahai and Rockhead screamed crazily as if they had seen a ghost. Everyone around them stopped and looked at Gue Mei on the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief. A person who had just stepped into the Five Elements sect actually defeated Gue Mei in one move. What did this mean? Zhang Fei came in front of Longao and stared at the young man in front of him. He asked word by word, "Who are you?" "Senior brother Zhang." Slap. Before Rockhead could speak, Zhang Fei gave him a slap and sent him flying. He said coldly, "You can't do anything right. What use do the sect have for trash like you?" Gue Mei and the other two were defeated. Where would the Five Elements sect's face go? Black Wolf, the three of them asked for it. They can't blame anyone else. One had to admit that Longao was indeed arrogant. The words he said, not to mention someone who had just entered the Five Elements sect, even the disciples of the Five Elements sect, including Zhang Fei, wouldn't be so arrogant. It was because of this that everyone was shocked when they heard these words. Sima too went straight to the point and said, "You all immediately comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablet. As long as you can comprehend all the chaos stone tablets, I will take you as a disciple." Hearing those words, everyone was shocked because every single one of them knew what it meant to become the disciple of the 5 element school's head. However, everyone was very serious because it was almost impossible to comprehend all 5 sides of the 5 elemental stone tablet at the same time. None of them hesitated, but Longao was cautious. The reason was simple. He didn't want the 5 element school to know that he was able to comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time. Just like that. In 3 days, no one was able to comprehend the 5 elemental stone tablets at the same time. Sima too, and the other 5 didn't know what to do. After thinking about it, they couldn't think of a better way to find out who this person was. The 6 of them were completely depressed. Outside the 5 elemental stone tablet. "Sect Master, we can't go on like this. If we can't find this person, we might miss the opportunity. Nodding his head, Sima too thought for a while and said, I have already thought about it. Tomorrow, I will arrange for everyone to enter the 5-elemental space. 5-elemental space? Hearing those words, everyone stood up with shock written all over their faces. The 5 of them knew clearly what the 5-elemental space meant. Sect Master, the old ancestor left a message that only those who can trigger the 5-elemental stone tablets at the same time can enter the 5-elemental space. Until now, we still haven't figured out who is able to trigger the 5-elemental stone tablets at the same time. If more than 1,000 people enter the 5-elemental space, the old ancestor, although the Earth Element sect's sect master didn't finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. How could Sima Tu not know about this? He sighed helplessly and said, How could I not know about this? After more than 10,000 years, we finally have an opportunity. As long as this person can grow, our 5-element school will rise. Tell me, what method can we use to find this person? Sima Tu was really anxious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of such a method. Back then, when the old ancestor of the 5-element school died, he broke into the 5-elemental space. Furthermore, he had set a rule that no one, not even the sect master of the 5-element school, could enter the 5-elemental space unless they could trigger the 5-elemental stone tablets. For tens of thousands of years, no one in the 5-element sect had been able to trigger the 5-element stone steel and draw out the light that had not appeared for tens of thousands of years. Now that it finally appeared, Sima Tu would definitely not choose to give up. In order to prevent the 5-element school from losing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the 5-element school had to go against the will of the old ancestor of the 5-element school. The 5 of them were speechless because what the sect master said was true. Under such circumstances, it was simply impossible to find this person. In the end, the 5 of them chose to accept because the sect master's intention was very clear. He wanted to use the 5-element school to find this person and deal with him on the spot. If this person could truly grow, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the 5-element school. Sect Master, we'll go and arrange it now. Remember, don't let anyone know about this. Announce to the public that they are not qualified to enter the 5-element school and have all left. How could the 5 of them not know about the sect master's intention? They all nodded in agreement. This matter could not be leaked. Otherwise, it would not be a good thing for the 5-element school. Only one person could trigger the 5-elemental stone tablets every 10,000 years. If they lost this opportunity, who knew how long they would have to wait? There's no time to lose. All of you start immediately. I'll go and open the 5-element school now. Tomorrow at this time, bring everyone here. Yes, Sect Master. The 5 vice sect masters bowed respectfully and slowly left. Chapter 11:12. Brother Long, you have successfully comprehended the power of the 5 elements. If you continue to cultivate, I believe you will be able to achieve the 5 elements reincarnation in no time. 5 elements reincarnation. Longao roughly understood what Bai Ling was talking about. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Once the power of the 5 elements merged, it would form the 5 elements reincarnation. Bai Ling, do you mean that I can leave the 5 elements sect now? To be honest, Longao really didn't want to stay any longer. The longer he stayed, the more trouble he would have to face. He had activated the 5-element stone tablet and brought out the 5 elements light that hadn't appeared in 10,000 years. The 5 elements sect had already started to take this matter seriously. Longao had full confidence that as long as he was willing to leave, he could leave at any time. Brother Long, without waiting for Bai Ling to speak, Xiling said, Longao, if you want to comprehend the 5 elements reincarnation sooner, you have to stay in the 5 elements sect. What did that mean? Longao, have you heard of the 5 elements space of the 5 elements sect? He shook his head. Longao really didn't know about the 5 elements space that Xiling was talking about. He only knew that there was a 5-element stone tablet in the 5 elements sect. Back then, the ancestor of the 5 elements sect observed the 5 elements chaos stone tablet and created the 5-element stone tablet. I have to say that this person's talent and potential is the strongest I have ever seen. How could Longao not know about this? The fact that the ancestor of the Five Elements sect could observe the Five Elements Chaos Stone Tablet and create the Five Elements Stone Tablet was already a problem. So what? Longao already understood the Five Elements Stone Tablet very well. It seemed impossible to use the Five Elements Stone Tablet to condense the Five Elements reincarnation. However, Longao didn't say anything. He knew Xiling's personality very well. If he wasn't confident, he believed that Xiling would never ask. Longao, back then, the old ancestor of the Five Elements sect, used some mysterious method to create a five-element space. If a person who cultivates the power of the Five Elements enters the five-element space, he will be able to form a Five Elements reincarnation. At this point, Violet's spirit did not continue, but the meaning of her words was very clear. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he understood what Xiling meant. Five-element space. In other words, if he could enter the five-element space, the speed and probability of condensing the five elements reincarnation would greatly increase. If that was the case, why did he leave? What he wished for came true. At this moment, the five vice sect leaders arrived. The general idea was that at this time tomorrow, the five of them would bring everyone to the five-element space. The five of them did not say much. Others didn't know what was going on, but Longao knew that his luck was a little too good. Longao, who had originally wanted to leave, heard that the five-element sect wanted him to enter the five-element space. He could use this opportunity to condense the five-element samsara. The night passed in silence. The next day, everyone entered the five-element space. The five-element space was boundless. In the air, there were five different colored airflows. They were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. However, the five elements airflows in the five-element space were extremely powerful. The five-element space was a forbidden area of the five-element sect. No one, not even the sect leader of the five-element sect, could enter casually. The five-element sect's old ancestor had made a famous rule that those who could not sense the five-element stone tablet and cultivated the power of the five elements could not enter the five-element space. Otherwise, they would be killed by the five-element space. Sima 2's meaning was simple. It was too difficult to find the person who could draw out the five elements light by normal means. Sima 2 would not do this if he had a better way. Left with no choice, Sima 2 decided to let everyone enter the five-element space. Apart from those who cultivated the power of the five elements, the rest of the people could not withstand the five elements airflows. Whoever could come out alive would be the person who drew out the five elements light. Sacrificing thousands of people just to find one person. To the five-element sect, thousands of people were dispensable. Not to mention thousands, even if it was 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000 people. As long as they could find the person they wanted, they could sacrifice them. Without a doubt. Other than Longao, the thousands of people who entered the five-element space were instantly killed by the five elements airflows. No one was spared. Looking at the cultivators who were killed one by one, Longao felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, he had already comprehended the power of the five elements. Otherwise, he would have suffered the same fate. Brother Long, quickly comprehend the power of the five elements. I hope you can use the five elements airflows to form the five elements reincarnation. Nodding his head, Longao was very clear about Bai Ling's intention. He did not dare to hesitate at all. He immediately released his five elements power and began to slowly merge the five elements airflow. Not only that, Longao released the five elements stone tablet's aura from his dantian and circulated the five elements heaven-devouring chant, hoping to comprehend the five elements reincarnation sooner. 1 month later, outside the five element space. According to the six people's estimation, they should be able to find the original body in 3 days. But what was the result? For a whole month, there was no news. Even the six of them did not dare to enter the five-element space casually, because among the six of them, even Sima 2 had only comprehended 4 five-elements airflows. Otherwise, how could such a good thing not happen to him? Sect leader. Before the wood element sect leader could finish his words, the entire five-element space began to tremble. A loud rumbling sound was heard, and the six people's faces changed. They did not dare to hesitate and retreated 10 meters away. Disappeared? looking at the five-element space in front of them that suddenly disappeared. The six people were completely dumbfounded. They did not know what had happened. Why did the five-element space disappear for no reason? The five-element space and five-element stone tablet were the most important and precious items of the five-element sect. They were also the only things left behind by the five-element sect's old ancestor. For so many years, the five-element sect had been very careful with their treasures, fearing that the five-element space and five-element stone tablet would be lost. Who would have thought that the five-element space would disappear? Seal the sect immediately. No one is allowed to step into the five-element sect. No one is allowed to step out of the five-element sect. The five vice sect leaders naturally knew the seriousness of the matter. The disappearance of the five-element space was like an earthquake to the five-element sect. The five of them did not dare to hesitate and immediately sealed the five-element sect. As for Sima too, he could only stare at everything in front of him. The five-element space had disappeared just like that. Even now, Sima too was still unwilling to believe it. With the disappearance of the five-elemental space, the person who triggered the five-elemental stone steel had disappeared as well. The blow to the five-elemental sect was obvious. Sima too could not accept it, but he was powerless. All he could do was watch. Chapter 11:13. With the disappearance of the five-element space, Sima too and the others did not know what had happened. With the five-element sect sealed, no one knew what had happened. Within the five-element space, Longao did not know about the disappearance of the five-element space. He thought that with the help of the five elements force in the five-element space, he could condense the five elements reincarnation. However, after a whole month, there was still no result. You don't have the five elements body, so you can't condense the five elements reincarnation. A heavy sigh was heard. Hearing the sigh, Longao was shocked. Looking at the middle-aged man who was slowly condensing the five elements force in front of him, Longao seemed to have guessed something. It seems that you have guessed my identity. The middle-aged man smiled warmly, just like a good father. Five elements patriarch? Ha ha ha, that's right. It would be a lie to say that he was not shocked. Longao never thought that he would meet the legendary five elements patriarch in the five-element space. Violet Spirit had already said that the five elements patriarch's talent was unparalleled in the world. She believed that even the heavenly Tao could not compete with the five elements patriarch. Violet Spirit rarely praised others, so one could imagine how high the five elements patriarch's talent was. It was said that the five elements patriarch had already fallen. If that was the case, why would the five elements patriarch appear in front of him? Senior, my name is Longao. Long family? He nodded and then shook his head. Longao nodded and shook his head, which surprised the five elements patriarch. He asked, "What do you mean by nodding and shaking your head?" Senior, although I am a disciple of the Long family, I have no connection with them. I have re-established the Dragon Sect, and I am the master of the Dragon Sect. Longao was indeed the master of the Dragon Sect. As for Long Ying, she was only the master of the Dragon Sect. Hearing this, the five elements patriarch was even more surprised because he did not expect the young man in front of him to dare to do this. He knew very well what a Long family meant. Not only did the young man in front of him dare to break away from his Long family, but he also dared to rebuild the Dragon Sect. This in itself showed how arrogant this young man was. Five elements patriarch suddenly burst into laughter. Very good, very good. What a pity, what a pity. Senior, what do you mean by what you just said? Longao had also thought that something must have gone wrong for him to be unable to condense the five elements samsara. According to Xiling and by Ling's estimation, if there were no accidents, he would definitely be able to condense the five elements reincarnation with the help of the five elements space. But the result? Longao, only those with the five elements body can condense the five elements reincarnation. Even if you forcefully condense the five elements reincarnation, it will be a fake five elements reincarnation. Not only will it be useless, it will also hinder your cultivation. So that was the case. Longao finally understood why he had been unable to condense the five elements reincarnation all this time. It turned out that he did not possess the so-called five elements body at all. Longao, I don't need to say more. I believe you already know. Nodding his head, shrugging his shoulders helplessly, Longao said, if that's the case, I won't force it. After tens of thousands of years of waiting, I thought that the five elements reincarnation would reappear this time. But I didn't expect that. Let's not talk about it. Although you don't possess the five elements body and can't condense the five elements reincarnation, you have been cultivating the power of the five elements. I believe it will be of great help to your cultivation. Longao did not speak. This time, he did not succeed in condensing the five elements reincarnation and knew that it would be impossible in this lifetime. He was more or less unwilling. Senior, if that's the case, I will leave first. Since he was unable to condense the five elements reincarnation, Longao did not want to stay any longer. As for the five elements heaven-swallowing art, he would continue to cultivate it. Just as the five elements patriarch said, even if he could not condense the five elements reincarnation, at least cultivating the five elements heaven-swallowing art would be of great help to his cultivation. Not to mention, the five elements heaven-swallowing art came from the five elements primal chaos stone tablet. It was easy to imagine the power of the five elements heaven-swallowing art. Longao could almost say that even the five elements patriarch might not be able to sense the five elements heaven-swallowing art from the five elements primal chaos stone tablet. Longao, you and I are fated. I hope you can promise me one thing. Senior, please speak. Since you can activate the five elements primal chaos stone tablet and form the power of the five elements, I believe it will not be difficult for you to reach the peak of martial arts in the future. I hope that you can help the five elements sect in the future. I don't expect the five elements sect to remain strong, but I hope that it will not be destroyed. Longao could almost guess the five elements patriarch's intention. Senior, I promise you. He did not have any grudges with the five elements sect. If the situation allowed it in the future, if the five elements sect was in trouble, he would help. Thank you, Longao. Since you can cultivate the power of the five elements at the same time, I believe the five elements slave will be of greater use if he follows you. Just as the five elements patriarch finished speaking, an old man appeared. There was no aura fluctuation. Was the five elements slave a puppet? As expected. Longao, this is the five elements slave that I created with the help of the five elements reincarnation. He also has the power of the five elements. Ordinary people can't control him at all. Only those who cultivate the power of the five elements at the same time can. He will follow you in the future. Nodding his head, Longao was very clear about the five elements patriarch's intention. He just wanted him to owe him a favor. Even if the five elements sect was in trouble in the future, he would be embarrassed to refuse. Since things had come to this point, could he refuse? It was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Not to mention, the other party was the five elements patriarch, one of the most powerful warriors in the world. Even if he died, Longao was sure that if the five elements patriarch attacked him, he might not be able to leave the five elements space. Without the slightest confidence, Longao smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior." Longao tried to sense the five elements slave in front of him and asked curiously, "Senior, I can't sense his strength at all. I want to ask, what is the strength of the five elements slave?" Longao was very surprised. Although he had guessed that the five elements slave refined by the five elements patriarch was definitely not simple, he never thought that even he couldn't sense the strength of the five elements slave. Could it be that the strength of the five elements slave was similar to that of the five elements patriarch? Impossible. Longao, the five elements slave was refined by me with the help of the five elements reincarnation and the power of space. As long as he doesn't attack, the five of you will be able to sense his true strength. However, I can guarantee that even if it's a Nirvana rebirth martial artist, he will not be a match for the five elements slave. Hearing this, Longao was pleasantly surprised, because he really didn't expect that the five elements patriarch gave him the five elements patriarch would be so overbearing and not afraid of Nirvana realm warriors. Looking at the entrance of the five elements space in front of them, the six of them were completely dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. The six of them looked at each other, not knowing what to do. From the beginning to the end, The 6 of them had never thought that someone would actually be able to lure out the old ancestor and recover the 5-element space. 3 days later, apart from the 6 of them, no one else knew about the 5-element space. The 5-element sect had completely sealed off the news. No matter who it was, no one received any news. As for the 1,000 people, many people were speculating because sect leader Sima had personally said that he would focus on cultivating the 1,000 people. Therefore, even if the 1,000 people disappeared, no one would suspect anything. Not to mention, for the 5-element sect, these thousands of people were practically dispensable existences. 5-element city. Sherpatian, I have already said that the grudge between you and your second uncle has nothing to do with my 5-element sect. Therefore, leave the 5-element city. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Suddenly, Sima Tu's tone became tough, making Sherpatian a little helpless. Master Sima, waving his hand, without giving Sherpatian any chance to speak, Sima Tu said, your second uncle has already left the 5-element city. Remember, no matter who you are, if you enter the 5-element city and cause trouble in the future, don't blame the 5-element city for not giving face to your Wansho sect. As soon as Sima Tu finished speaking, his figure disappeared from the 5-element city. The 5 deputy heads were respectively the Metal Element Faction Leader, Wood Element Faction Leader, Water Element Faction Leader, Fire Element Faction Leader, and Earth Element Faction Leader. With their status and strength, not to mention Sherpatian, even if Sherpotian's father and second uncle came, they wouldn't dare to continue staying in the 5-element city. The 5 of them didn't say anything, but their meaning was clear. Sherpotian's face became more and more gloomy. He naturally knew what Sima Tu's words meant. In the end, Sherpatian chose to compromise. As the saying goes, a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. If he continued to stay, the consequences would be unimaginable. What do you all think? I don't know. In any case, we just need to follow sect leaders' instructions. Looking at the gradually disappearing figures, the 5 of them chose to leave at the same time. After leaving the 5-element sect, Longao didn't return to the Dragon Peak. Instead, he began to roam the Martial Sky continent. His first goal was the so-called Earth ranking. In the Martial Sky continent, there were 2 rankings, the Heaven ranking and the Earth ranking. The Heaven ranking was a ranking that everyone in the Martial Sky continent could chase after. It was also the most valuable ranking in the Martial Sky continent. As long as one could enter the top 100 of the Heaven ranking, one would be an all-powerful figure in the Martial Sky continent. The 10 Master of the 10 Directions were all super figures in the top 20 of the Heaven ranking. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for young people to enter the Heaven ranking. It was rumored that among the figures on the Heaven list, the person with the lowest strength was still a supreme Dao martial artist. One could imagine how terrifying the existence of the Heaven list was. As for the Earth ranking, it was a ranking that anyone below the age of 40 could chase after. It was also a ranking that was prepared for young people. Many times, no one could enter the Earth ranking and the Heaven ranking at the same time. There were rumors that the first place of the Earth ranking had already entered the Heaven ranking. As for whether it was true or not, no one knew. Longao was preparing to chase after the Earth ranking. That way, he could better train himself and continuously improve his strength. According to the information that Longao had obtained, the first place of the Earth ranking was a Black Grade Great Emperor. After the 50th place, almost all of them were supreme gods. Because of this, Longao began to challenge. According to the rules of the Earth ranking, the fastest way to enter the Heaven ranking was to challenge the people on the Earth ranking. If the challenge was successful, one could enter the Heaven ranking directly. If the challenge wasn't successful, one would either lose the right to challenge or be killed directly. Longao calculated that with his current strength, he could probably challenge a White Grade Great Emperor. In a short span of 10 days, Longao consecutively challenged 3 people on the Earth ranking. He directly succeeded and successfully entered the Heaven ranking, ranking 81st. Chapter 11:15. 81st on the Earth ranking. In just a few dozen days, the Earth ranking had changed. Those who received the news were all shocked. There were always people paying attention to the Heaven ranking and Earth ranking. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for the two rankings to change. Especially the heaven ranking, there would be no changes for a few years, or even a dozen years. It was still the same saying, how could those who could enter the heaven ranking not have some real skills? As for the earth ranking, there would be some monstrous geniuses who would challenge those who were at the top of the earth ranking to enter the earth ranking. Black Wolf? No one knew who this Black Wolf was and how he could challenge 3 people consecutively and be ranked 81st on the earth ranking. The 80th on the earth ranking were gold grade great emperors. With the current situation of the earth ranking, there were no divine grade great emperors in the top 50. One should know that there were strong and weak martial artists of the same level. Longao stopped challenging. In the wilderness, there was no one around. Goo goo, goo goo. It was unknown what kind of spiritual beast made the sound, but it was especially eerie in the wilderness. After successfully challenging the people on the earth ranking and being ranked 81st, Longao's cultivation had successfully broken through to the peak purple grade Great Emperor realm. He was only one step away from officially breaking through to the black grade Great Emperor realm. 10 levels of Great Emperor realm. From low to high, they were red grade Great Emperor realm, orange grade Great Emperor realm, yellow grade Great Emperor realm, green grade Great Emperor realm, cyan grade Great Emperor realm, blue grade Great Emperor realm, purple grade Great Emperor realm, black grade Great Emperor realm, white grade Great Emperor realm, and gold grade Great Emperor realm. Above the 10 levels of Great Emperor realm was the titled Great Emperor realm. Above the titled Great Emperor realm was the so-called Demigod realm, which was the 9 heavens of the Demigod realm. Longao only had one thing to do now, which was to break through to the black grade Great Emperor realm from the peak purple grade Great Emperor realm as soon as possible. The increase in level also represented a huge increase in strength. Sitting on the ground, sitting quietly in the wilderness, Longao absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around him and circulated the 9-cycle reincarnation technique in his body. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was the supreme cultivation technique of the dragon seal space. It was passed down from Long Fu to Longao. Longao attached great importance to the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique because every breakthrough was a qualitative change. He had just broken through to the 2nd cycle of reincarnation. Not only had his strength soared, but he had also gained the ability to teleport. That was indeed the case. Longao was looking forward to seeing how many divine abilities the 7 cycles of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could produce. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was incomparably powerful. However, cultivating it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Until now, Longao had only just broken through to the 2nd cycle of reincarnation. Master, you have now reached the breakthrough point. What you need to do is to devour a large amount of power. As long as you have enough power, you can naturally break through with the help of the desolate saint body. He nodded. As for Long Fu's point, how could Longao not know about it? The sacred desolation physique was not only the #1 cultivation sacred physique, but it was also the #1 waste physique. Without sufficient power to supplement it, there was only one outcome for someone with such a physique. That was a tragedy. If Longao hadn't obtained the dragon seal space back then, he would still be a waste in Scarlet Fire Town. How could he have challenged the Earth leaderboard and established the dragon sect? He let out a deep sigh. It was easier said than done to devour a large amount of power. Long Fu had devoured all the remnant souls of the divine dragon. Longao didn't say anything because he knew that the stronger the dragon seal space was, the more advantageous it would be for him. As if he knew what his master was thinking, Long Fu said, "Master, I know that your situation is urgent. Therefore, I have already thought about it. In your current situation, only by entering that place can you quickly increase your strength." Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Longao knew Long Fu's character very well. If he wasn't completely confident, Long Fu would never say that. Just as Long Fu said, his situation was urgent. He had to quickly increase his strength. Only then would he be able to deal with everything. Long Fu, where is this place? Longao couldn't wait. Master, to tell you the truth, the old master also entered this place. It was because of this that the old master's strength had greatly increased. However, it was filled with danger. I hope that master can consider it carefully. Old master? Long Tian? Longao naturally knew who the old master that Long Fu was talking about was. As for danger, he wasn't afraid of danger. Otherwise, he wouldn't have entered the Sky Martial continent alone and provoked the 10 Directions tripod. Long Fu, speak. Long Fu smiled because he knew his master's character very well. Knowing that there was a tiger in the mountain, he still went to the mountain. This was his master. Master, the place I want to bring you to is called the Massacre Abyss. Massacre Abyss? What place? Master, according to the old master, the Massacre Abyss is filled with vicious people. Once you enter, you have to disregard life and death. Inside the Massacre Abyss, even if there is no enmity, there will still be people who will kill you. Long Fu, does the Massacre Abyss have the energy I need? Long Ao wasn't a fool. If it was just danger, Long Fu wouldn't need to do this. The Sky Martial continent was filled with danger, especially the 10 Directions tripod. He believed that the danger didn't belong to the Massacre Abyss. Since that was the case, why would he take the extra step of going to the Massacre Abyss? As expected. Master, your guess is correct. When I followed the old master into the Massacre Abyss, I saw a mysterious energy that was even stronger than the energy of heaven and earth. As long as you can absorb it, even if it's just 3 months, I believe you will be able to break through to the titled sovereign realm and reach the demigod realm. Hearing Long Fu's words, it would be a lie to say that they weren't tempted. Long Ao was no exception. With such a temptation, Long Ao believed that he couldn't resist it and left. According to Long Fu, the Massacre Abyss was at the center of the Sky Martial continent. The entrance was very mysterious and hidden. Not to mention others, even the 10 Directions tripod rarely knew about it. As for those who knew, they wouldn't be so bored as to enter the Massacre Abyss for no reason. Again, the Massacre Abyss was filled with danger. Everyone inside was a madman. No one wanted to enter without leaving. On the way, Bai Ling tried to persuade Long Ao a few times, but he had already made up his mind. He knew that the Massacre Abyss was an opportunity for him, a rare opportunity. No matter what happened, he had to enter the Massacre Abyss. Peak Purple Grade Great Emperor Realm. There was still a long way to go before reaching the titled Great Emperor Realm. Under normal circumstances, who knew how long it would take? However, Long Fu had already said that as long as he entered the Massacre Abyss and absorbed the mysterious energy, he would be able to break through within 3 months. Instead, he listened to Long Fu talk about the Slaughter Abyss. The Massacre Abyss. No one knew where the Massacre Abyss came from. Many vicious people were chased by the people outside or the Cauldron of 10 Directions, and eventually hid in the Massacre Abyss. Not only that, within the Massacre Abyss, there were many aborigines. Similarly, no one knew where these aborigines came from. However, within the Massacre Abyss, experts were as common as the clouds. Even if you didn't take the initiative to provoke others, there was no telling when you would be killed. After listening, Long Ao rested for a while. He did not continue to dwell on this issue and continued on his journey. About half an hour later, he did not know how far he had walked before he finally saw a glimmer of light. Long Ao was not the slightest bit excited. Instead, he was somewhat dignified, because he did not know how strong the people guarding outside were. As long as they were not demigod martial artists, he could leave smoothly. But the people of the Massacre Abyss were a little different. After thinking about it, Long Ao finally decided to use teleportation to enter the Massacre Abyss. At the entrance of the Massacre Abyss, 2 men with a huge difference in height were guarding here. The thin man was more than 2 meters tall, while the fat man was only about 1.5 meters tall. The contrast between the two was too great. Skinny guy, we've already been here for so long. Are you bored? Why don't we go into the city and see if there are any suitable targets? It's not like we can keep waiting here. Hearing this, the thin man glared fiercely. Fatty, stop talking nonsense. If you want to leave, you can scram alone. I like to wait here. Before the fat man could speak, the thin man continued. Who do you think you are? You want to enter the city? With your strength, you will only die if you enter. You might as well stay here. If we are lucky, we might be able to make a fortune. The fat man seemed to want to say something, but did not say it in the end. because the fat man was very clear that what the thin man said was right. With their strength, entering the city was indeed a road to death. They might even become food for others. But waiting like this was not a solution. If no one entered for 8 to 10 years, would they continue waiting like this? The thin man and the fat man were both black-grade great emperors. In the massacre abyss, black-grade great emperors were nothing. Otherwise, the two of them would not be waiting here. The thin man and the fat man looked at each other. Both of their faces were filled with joy at the same time. They had already sensed footsteps coming from the tunnel. It seemed like the fish was about to take the bait. And the result? Before the two of them could figure out the situation, or even know what had happened, their vision blurred and they were sent flying with a kick. Longao's figure appeared. Before he came out, he had already sensed that there was no one around except for the two black-grade great emperors. He originally wanted to use teleportation to escape, but he chose to face them head-on. After all, it was only two black-grade great emperors. With his current strength, he could easily handle them. You too, big brother, please let us go. The thin man and the fat man were shocked. The two of them already knew what had happened. The people who entered the massacre abyss this time were stronger than them. As the saying goes, kind people are bullied, kind horses are ridden. This time, they were in big trouble. The two of them knew very well what the massacre abyss meant. In here, killing a person was like stepping on an ant. Even if the other party killed the two of them, they believed that no one would know. Even if they knew, they believed that no one would be nosy. This was the massacre abyss. Bully the kind and fear the evil. No matter who it was, they would follow this rule. The thin man and the fat man were no exception. Follow me. From the beginning to the end, Longao did not have the intention to kill the two. The reason was simple. It was his first time in the massacre abyss, and he was unfamiliar with the place. If the two of them led the way or told him about the massacre abyss, it would be a great help to him in the massacre abyss. Chapter 11:17. The skinny man and the fat man stood up, trembling with fear, and slowly followed him. The two of them were scared to the extreme because they did not know whether the person in front of them would kill them or not. After walking for a while, "How long have you been in the massacre abyss?" "Big brother, we have been here for 20 years. 20 years? For a martial artist, 20 years was not a short time. Longao was overjoyed and asked, "Do you know anything about the massacre abyss?" The two of them nodded at the same time and asked back, "Big brother, what do you want to know?" "Let's talk about the massacre abyss first." At this moment, what Longao wanted to know the most was about the massacre abyss. The reason was simple. In the following time, he would be staying in the massacre abyss for a long time. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy to be victorious in every battle. If he did not even know the situation of the massacre abyss, then he would be like a headless fly, running around randomly. "Big brother, the massacre abyss is boundless. No one can walk through it once, but inside the massacre abyss, there is a huge city, which is the residence of many people." "A city?" Longao did not speak. Under normal circumstances, many people will enter the city. Only those who are solitary or want to go out to cultivate. The rest, as long as they enter the massacre abyss, almost all will enter the city. So that was it. You too, tell me about the massacre in the abyss cities. The two of them were still scared because from the beginning to the end, the two of them did not know whether the young man in front of them would kill them or not. But since things had come to this point, they could only listen obediently. "Big brother, the city is incomparably huge, and there are a total of 5 abyss lords. The 5 of them are in charge of the entire massacre abyss. As for the rest, there are too many. We don't know where to start." 5 abyss lords. Longao did not continue to ask. Just as the two of them said, the massacre abyss was so big that he did not know what to ask. It seemed that he had to take one step at a time. You too can get lost. Longao had decided to enter the city of the massacre abyss. "Big brother, wait." Longao, who was about to leave, heard the two people shouting. He stopped and asked, "What's the matter?" "Big brother, we want to ask you for a favor. Can you bring us into the city?" Hearing the words of the two, Longao was very curious. "It's not like the two of you don't have legs. Why do you want to follow me into the city?" Big brother, to tell you the truth, with our strength, if we enter the city alone, we will only die. Therefore, the two of us want to follow Big Brother in the future. No matter if it is a mountain of blades or a sea of flames, we will listen to Big Brother's orders. So that was the case. Longao thought for a moment. After all, he had only just entered the slaughter abyss and did not understand anything. If he had two followers by his side, it would be more or less useful. You can follow me, but remember this. No matter what happens, don't make decisions on your own. Otherwise, I won't be merciful. Thank you, Big Brother. We wouldn't dare. The fat man and the skinny man were overjoyed, because in the slaughter abyss, they found a powerful Big Brother to rely on. In the future, they could sit back and relax. Even if they entered the city, they would not have to worry about being killed. Just like that, Longao led the two and left, walking towards the huge city in the distance. The huge city stood in the slaughter abyss. The entire abyss was dark, and there were no 9 heavens. At first glance, there were rocks and weeds everywhere. It was like a mass grave, giving people a depressing feeling. Big Brother, we're here. After walking for a few hours, the three finally arrived outside the huge city. According to the two, Longao already knew that in the entire slaughter abyss, there was only this huge city in front of them. Not everyone would enter. Many people would leave the city and cultivate in seclusion. There were also people who were afraid of being killed if they entered the city, so they could only wander outside. One had to admit that the slaughter abyss was much crueler than the outside world, because here, the slightest carelessness could lead to being killed and falling into a state of eternal damnation. Big Brother, when we enter the city, we must be careful. I know. How could Longao not know what the two meant? Before entering the slaughter abyss, Longao already knew that the slaughter abyss was full of dangers. Even if you did not provoke others, there would still be people who would come to find trouble with you. In other words, entering the city of the slaughter abyss, it was hard to say whether one would live or die. It was still the same sentence. Things had already come to this point. Even if they did not want to, they had to enter. Let's go. Without further hesitation, Longao led the two and walked towards the city in front of them. In a short while, they had already entered the city. As soon as they entered the city, Longao sensed the auras of the surroundings locking onto them. They were all coldly looking at them, like wolves staring at their prey. Furthermore, Longao could clearly sense that many of the people around them were extremely powerful. Even the weakest were sovereigns. It was not that there were no low-level cultivators, but there were very few of them. It was hard to imagine just how terrifying the foundation and power of the slaughter abyss was. Longao even thought that if he could become the master of the slaughter abyss, then wouldn't he be able to contend against the 10 great powers? At that time, he would also have a place in the martial heaven continent. But it was just a thought. Longao was very clear that let alone becoming the master of the slaughter abyss, just being able to smoothly leave the slaughter abyss would be an extremely difficult matter. Big Brother, you have to be careful. We've just entered the city. We'll definitely become the prey of many people. Although the two of them had already entered the slaughter abyss for 20 years, they had not stayed in the city for long. So to the city, the two of them were still newcomers. Just as the two of them had said, the three of them had just entered the city. They could become the prey at any time. They nodded. Even without the two of them reminding him, Longao was already on guard. He was very clear about what kind of place this was. The slaughter abyss was a place where strength was respected. If you were strong, everyone would be afraid of you. If you were weak, everyone would bully you. This was the reality. However, it was especially realistic in the slaughter abyss. Oh, where did this handsome little brother come from? Quick, let me see. Looking at the coquettish Ani walking over, the fatty and sister-in-law were startled. They whispered, Big Brother, this person is called a hag. She's a titled sovereign. She's very smooth and slick and has many friends. She's very sinister. So Big Brother, you have to be careful. Big Brother, this hag likes tender young men the most. She'll chop them up to make buns. The fatty didn't continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Chapter 11:18. Hag? Little handsome. Is this your first time in the city? Such a person was heartless and unscrupulous. Of course, Longao would not care about him. However, his main purpose in entering the massacre abyss was to absorb the mysterious energy and increase his strength. As for other matters, he would avoid them as much as possible. Longao didn't want to find trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. Moreover, this was the massacre abyss. In the massacre abyss, the more afraid you were, the more people would want to bully you. In such a place, one had to be arrogant. This way, he might be able to intimidate others. He chose to ignore it. Longao and the other two walked past the female yaksha. The surrounding people were very surprised because they knew very well what the female yaksha meant. If this was the case, wouldn't the three of them not give the female yaksha any face? There would be a good show to watch. As expected, the hag was one of the top figures in the city. No one had ever dared to disregard her like this. She said angrily, "Brat, you're really arrogant. But don't worry, I like people like you." A knife hidden in a smile. The hag was a titled Great Emperor. Her strength and speed were obvious. In a flash, she had already blocked the three of them. "You like me, but I don't like you. As a woman, please respect yourself." Longao had provoked her time and time again. Even if she was a female yaksha, she could not bear it. "Ha ha ha, what an arrogant brat." The hag's face changed instantly. She said coldly, "Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? You're courting death." Just as the female yaksha's words fell, two figures appeared out of nowhere at an extremely fast speed. The skinny and fatty were shocked. After all, the hag's strength was obvious. If they were alone, they would definitely die. The two of them were more or less stable because their big brother, Black Wolf, was in front of them. However, the hag was still a titled Great Emperor. It was still unknown if their big brother could fight against her. Longao was also shocked. Two black-grade Great Emperors. It seemed like the female yaksha wanted to test her strength. In the end, the female yaksha did not have full confidence. Otherwise, she would be the one fighting now. Longao was not afraid of black-grade Great Emperors. If it was an ordinary martial artist, even if his strength was comparable to two black-grade Great Emperors, he would definitely lose in terms of speed. However, Longao's situation was completely different. With spatial teleportation, Longao instantly locked onto their positions. Solar ray attack. End the battle quickly. Longao had already thought it through. He had just stepped into the slaughter abyss, and if he did not show off his strength, there would definitely be an endless stream of trouble coming his way. According to Long Fu, as long as he could devour the mysterious energy, his strength would skyrocket in just 3 months. From the purple-grade Great Emperor realm, he could directly advance to the titled Great Emperor realm. As for whether he could break through to the demigod realm, it was still unknown. Long Fu also knew his master's eagerness. Without wasting any time, he said, "Master, the mysterious energy is here. Inside the tea shop. You two, be careful. We've been targeted." Both of them were shocked. They seemed to have guessed that this would happen. Since they had provoked the female yaksha, it would be strange if the female yaksha didn't come after them. "Big brother, what should we do now?" The skinny and fatty clearly knew that since things had come to this point, they could only hold on tightly to their big brother. Otherwise, they would be dead without a doubt. What should they do? Since they had already entered the city, they could only take one step at a time. Longao had already guessed that there would be endless troubles in the massacre abyss this time. The female yaksha was only the first. He believed that there would be a second, a third, a fourth, and even a fifth. Longao was more or less afraid. No matter what, the female yaksha was still a titled Great Emperor. With his current strength, he still wasn't a match for a titled Great Emperor. However, Longao didn't plan to hide. After entering the city, other than devouring the mysterious energy, Longao had already decided to train in the massacre abyss. He hoped that he could break through to the demigod realm here. Chapter 11:19. Lady Boss, what should we do now? The female boss was slapped in the face by Longao in front of everyone. How could she let this go so easily? However, Longao's strength did shock the female boss. In the end, the female boss was still afraid. Otherwise, she would have attacked long ago. I want to see how powerful this person is. She lowered her head and thought. Spread the word that this person has a peerless treasure on him. Got it. Borrow someone else's knife to kill. Without full confidence, the female boss could only choose to borrow someone else's knife to kill. Next, Longao followed Long Fu's guidance and prepared to search for the mysterious force. As for the skinny and fatty, they did not follow. After all, it was dangerous. If they did not have scruples, they would die. The skinny and fatty knew that their brother had good intentions, so they did not say anything more. The city. The 5 lords of the abyss ruled the massacre abyss together. They had always minded their own business. As for the mysterious force that Long Fu mentioned, it was in the city. It was a place called Killing Without Blinking. Killing without blinking. The meaning was very simple. Anyone who entered could kill each other. They could kill as many as they wanted. It was also a place for people to vent their anger. Longao was speechless when he knew that there was such a place. The world was really big, and there were all kinds of strange things. It gave people different ways of venting. No wonder it was called the Massacre Abyss. If it was outside, not to mention others, would the 10-direction cauldron agree? For the mysterious force, Longao had decided that whether it was a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, he had to go. Killing without blinking. It was a huge place with decent decorations. It was simple, and there were tables everywhere. It could be considered a sea of people. It seemed that there were quite a lot of people who wanted to vent their anger. As soon as Longao stepped in, he saw that it was a mess. You kill me, I kill you. There were swords everywhere. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to stand it. Longao did not want to kill, nor did he want to be killed. As he had said before, he had come here mainly to search for the mysterious force. However, he had already entered. Even if Longao didn't want to kill anyone, it didn't mean that others didn't want to kill him. Before Longao could stabilize himself, several figures shot towards him from all directions. Before they even arrived, their terrifying killing intent had already reached him. Trouble was coming. Of course, Longao wouldn't have the slightest hesitation and immediately started fighting. Master, I'll take you away. Before Longao could react, he found that his figure had disappeared. In the next second, he had entered a huge cave. In the middle of the cave, 9 huge stone bowls were arranged in a grid. Moreover, each of the huge stone bowls contained a different colored liquid. Longao was very sure that he had never seen such a color before. He couldn't describe it, but it was very strange and special. Could this be the mysterious power that Long Fu mentioned? Long Fu, this is the mysterious power? Master, that's right. Back then, the old master and I researched it for a very long time. However, we were unable to figure out exactly what sort of power this mysterious power was. The power within the 9 enormous stone bowls respectively represents 9 different types of power. Each of them has their own merits. Even the old master back then only absorbed 2 types of power. He nodded. Longao slowly walked towards the 9 huge stone bowls. He didn't know why, but when he looked at the 9 huge stone bowls in front of him, he felt as if they were connected by blood. Could it be that he knew these 9 huge stone bowls? No, he definitely didn't know them. Longao was completely sure of this. Before this, he had never seen these 9 huge stone bowls. If that was the case, why did he feel as if they were connected by blood when he saw them? What was going on? For a moment, the 9 stone bowls confused Longao. He didn't know what was going on. Longao didn't tell Long Fu about this. The current Longao was no longer the Longao who listened to Long Fu for everything. He had his own thoughts and knew what to say and what not to say. Longao knew in his heart what to say and what not to say. For example, he couldn't say anything about what was happening now. Bai Ling, Xiling, do you recognize the power in the 9 stone bowls? Without Longao saying anything, Xiling and Bai Ling had already sensed it. Both of them were communicating through their spiritual senses, so Long Fu didn't know what they were talking about. He also didn't know what Longao was thinking. He also didn't know what Longao wanted to do. If Long Fu learned that Longao was on guard, who knew what Long Fu would think? Big Brother Long, just now, my sister and I sensed it. We've never seen this kind of power before. However, according to my sister's guess, the liquid in the 9 bowls should be a new kind of power refined from blood. Bloodline? Hearing Bai Ling's words, Longao was startled. He was very clear that to refine a bloodline into a power that even Long Fu, Bai Ling, and Xiling couldn't sense, one had to be incredibly powerful. Other than the heavenly Daos and the God Diviner, there was no one else in the martial heaven continent capable of this. Could it be the God Diviner and the heavenly Daos? Bai Ling, can you sense the power of the bloodline's true body? I can't sense it. Longao hadn't been planning on telling the two Jianling about his situation. That was because it would be inconceivable. He had never seen the 9 stone bowls before, but he felt a connection to them. Who would believe him if he told them? It didn't matter if others believed him or not. In any case, Longao didn't know the details. After thinking it over, Longao decided to tell the two Jianling. He had no idea what was going on between him and the 9 stone bowls, and so Longao told them what he had sensed. Long Fu still didn't know, but Xiling and Bai Ling also understood what Longao meant. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used spiritual sense transmissions. Hearing Longao's words, whether it was Xiling or Bai Ling, both of them seemed to be a little surprised. This matter was indeed a little strange. No matter what, Longao had never seen the 9 stone bowls before. They were completely unrelated things, so why did he feel that they were connected by blood? What was going on? Longao, why don't you try dripping a drop of your bloodline into the 9 stone bowls? However, I have to warn you that if you do this, it might be dangerous. It's up to you to decide what to do. Xiling's meaning was clear. They couldn't make this decision. Longao had to make it himself. Longao had also thought of this. Since he felt a connection to the 9 stone bowls, then the best method was to drip his blood into them and see what was going on. Chapter 11:20. He took a deep breath. Until now, Longao still wasn't sure what the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls was. According to Long Fu, the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls contained 9 different types of energy. It was extremely powerful. Long Tian had only swallowed 2 types of energy back then, and his strength had skyrocketed. One could imagine how powerful the liquid was. Longao was a little curious. If the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls was so powerful, why didn't Long Tian keep it and swallow it slowly for a few months, or even a year or 2? At that time, his strength would skyrocket, and he could even leap 1,000 miles. Before the blood was dripped into his veins, Longao still asked the question in his heart. Master, there's something you don't know. Long Fu sighed deeply. Of course, he knew his master's question the best. Master, you can't swallow too much of the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls. It has to be determined by your condition. If you swallow too much, the consequences will be unimaginable. I see. Longao finally knew the reason. It turned out that the condition didn't allow it. It wasn't that Long Tian didn't want to, but if he gave up such a rare opportunity, wouldn't he be a fool? Master, what are you going to do? From the beginning to the end, Long Fu didn't know what his master was going to do. This made Long Fu feel very uncomfortable. I want to try my blood and see what happens after dripping it. Master. He waved his hand. Without giving Long Fu any chance to speak, Longao said, I've made up my mind. Long Fu didn't say anything else. As for Longao, he stretched out his right hand and forced a drop of blood. Drip. The blood flowed along the stone bowl into the liquid. Longao thought that something earth-shattering would happen because of the blood connection, but the result? When the blood entered the liquid, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There wasn't even a trace of a ripple. This made Longao very depressed. What was going on? Bai Ling, Xiling, it doesn't seem to work. Big Brother Long, try dripping it all into the 9 huge stone bowls. How could Longao not know what Bai Ling meant? Without any hesitation, Longao dripped his blood into the remaining 8 huge stone bowls. It was still calm. Just as Longao was about to take a look, the 9 huge stone bowls suddenly emitted an ear-piercing sound. Before Longao could react, The liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls had already begun to churn like boiling water. Longao hastily took 3 steps back. It seemed that his blood really had something to do with the liquid in the 9 huge stone bowls. Not to mention Longao. Even Long Fu was similarly shocked. 9 huge stone bowls. Every single one of them shot out a beam of light. 9 different colors of light interweaved with each other, making for a very strange sight. In the next second, Longao could clearly sense that he had been enveloped by 9 strange and powerful auras. They had even cut off his connection with Long Fu, Bai Ling, and Xiling. He did not dare to act rashly because he did not know whether the 9 auras that had locked onto him were friends or foes. 9 streams of aura instantly entered Longao's body and went on a rampage. It was as if external enemies had come in to sweep. Longao still did not dare to act rashly. However, at this moment, Longao was shocked to find that the 9 mysterious auras had entered his body and had begun to attack his blood vessels. Lin Fan was shocked. This was not good. If his blood vessels were attacked, he could die at any time. This time, he entered the massacre abyss to improve his strength, not to court death. Just as Longao was about to counterattack, his eyes closed and he directly fell to the ground, unconscious. If others were to know that he had fainted at this time, they would probably be shocked speechless. This was completely the rhythm of courting death. He lay quietly on the ground of the cave. Longao had no idea what was happening outside. Whether he was alive or dead, he had already handed it over. Just as Longao fainted, the 9 mysterious auras immediately withdrew. Next, the wordless book in Longao's body shot out and stopped in midair above the 9 stone bowls. It was like a king had descended and was looking down at the 9 stone bowls. If Longao was awake and saw this scene, who knew what would happen? The wordless book shot out a dazzling light. Then, a young man who looked exactly like Longao appeared. The young man looked exactly like Longao. However, the young man had a cold face and his entire body was emitting an aura of a king. Looking at the 9 stone bowls in front of him, the young man seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, as if he had something on his mind. Time passed bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, a heavy sigh was heard. This is faster than I thought. It was difficult to make a decision. In the end, the young man made up his mind and said to himself, "What will come will come. I hope we can succeed this time." Otherwise, at this point, the young man did not continue speaking. The young man's figure disappeared and returned to the wordless book. Then, the wordless book turned into a ray of light and disappeared into Longao's body. Traces of power entered Longao's body from the 9 huge stone bowls. Following that, a shocking scene occurred. The 9 huge stone bowls that were there just now suddenly disappeared. Peace was restored. From the beginning to the end, Long Fu, Xiling, and Bai Ling did not see the young man's appearance and the disappearance of the 9 stone bowls. They were separated by the terrifying aura. One could imagine how powerful the young man in the wordless book was. Long Fu, Xiling, and Bai Ling's figures all appeared. The 3 of them looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Although they did not know what had just happened, the 3 of them knew very well that the disappearance of the 9 stone bowls must have something to do with Longao. Things are not simple. It seems that Longao's bloodline is a little. Xiling did not continue because she did not know how to describe Longao's bloodline. It was too powerful and too strange. I also guessed that Master's bloodline was not simple, but I never thought that it would be so powerful that it could forcibly absorb the liquid in the 9 stone bowls. Long Fu also looked like he wanted to say something but stopped because even he did not know that Longao's bloodline was so strange and powerful. Sister, is Brother Long all right? In Bai Ling's heart, it did not matter whether Longao's bloodline was strange or powerful, as long as Longao was fine. This was Bai Ling's character. She was kind beyond words. Moreover, Bai Ling had already started to like Longao. At this moment, Bai Ling would rather have something happen to herself than let anything happen to Longao. Xiling sighed. How could she not know what her sister was thinking? Being able to break through from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the peak of the gold grade Great Emperor realm in an instant meant that he had obtained great benefits. Brother Long, the bloodline in your body? Seeing Bai Ling's hesitant look, Longao asked curiously, Bai Ling, what's wrong? Just as Bai Ling was about to speak, Xiling waved his hand and said, Longao, the bloodline in your body isn't simple. Your bloodline forcefully cut us off just now. So, we don't know what happened just now. Regarding this point, Longao had already thought of it. Longao had never been clear about his own bloodline. He only knew one thing, and that was that his bloodline was forcefully sealed. As for who sealed it, it was still unknown. Seeing that Longao didn't speak, Long Fu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Even he didn't know what had happened. He could only return to the dragon seal space. Longao, you. Xiling didn't finish his words. He pulled Bai Ling's hand and turned into two streams of flowing light, disappearing from the cave. Only Longao was left in the huge cave. It was empty. The 9 huge stone bowls had disappeared. From the beginning to the end, no one told him what had happened. As for him, he had been unconscious for so long. It was even more impossible for him to know what had happened. He didn't continue to dwell on it. No matter what, his cultivation had increased tremendously after entering the cave. If it was any other time, it wouldn't be easy to break through from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't excited. Longao was no exception. His cultivation had successfully broken through, and the 9 huge stone bowls had disappeared. There wasn't much meaning in staying here. As for the bloodline, just as Long Fu had said, he would take it one step at a time. With the help of Long Fu's power, Long Ao's figure disappeared from the cave and reappeared in the massacre abyss. Looking at the corpses everywhere and everyone fighting crazily, Long Ao shook his head helplessly. The massacre abyss, from a certain perspective, was not a bad place. Here, you could release yourself to your heart's content. As long as you had the strength, you could do whatever you wanted. Even if you died, it would be a crazy death. Longao didn't stay any longer. He didn't have much time to waste here. If there was a day when he wanted to vent, this was indeed the best place. Longao had just left the massacre abyss when he sensed that someone had locked onto his position. Without guessing, he already knew who was looking for trouble. The female Yaksha. If it was the previous Longao, he would more or less be afraid of the female Yaksha. No matter what, the female Yaksha's strength was there for all to see. A titled Great Emperor wasn't someone to be trifled with. But now, the situation was completely different. His cultivation had successfully broken through from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the gold grade Great Emperor realm. Even if he were to face a titled Great Emperor martial artist, Long Ao had full confidence that he could kill a titled Great Emperor martial artist with his current strength. Since things had already developed to this point, Long Ao didn't want to drag things out any longer. Otherwise, with someone locking onto him, who knew how much trouble it would bring to him. Female Yaksha, since you're here, why don't you come out and meet me? Kid, you're really to my liking. The female Yaksha walked out with a cold smile. Beside the female Yaksha was a burly middle-aged man. It wasn't clear if the burly middle-aged man did it on purpose, but his body emitted a powerful aura that lingered for a long time. Long Ao was shocked because he could clearly sense that the burly middle-aged man beside the female Yaksha was a demigod. With his current strength, such an expert wasn't easy to deal with. Kid, are you scared? The female Yaksha smiled coquettishly and purposely played with the burly man's arm. The two of them looked like a cheating couple. I'm scared? Long Ao sneered. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. In the end, the female Yaksha thought that he was easy to bully and didn't give her face, so she didn't let him go. Chapter 11:22. Brat, do you not know how to spell the word death? The burly man's face was cold. He didn't take the other party seriously at all. Long Ao purposely released his aura. Because of this, both the female Yaksha and the burly man looked down on him. A gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. Such a martial artist was just a piece of sh*t to the two of them. If they wanted to deal with him, it would be a matter of minutes. Who are you? How Dachuan? Get lost. How Dachuan and the female Yaksha never thought that the other party would suddenly say such a thing. Their faces were instantly enraged. Killing intent shot out in all directions and directly enveloped Longao. Brother Hao, there's no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Nodding, Hao Dachuan took 3 steps back. Brat. Before the female Yaksha could speak, Longao dashed out. Before he arrived, his terrifying aura had already suppressed them. Aura of heaven and earth. Feeling the powerful aura released by the other party, the two of them shouted in fear. They knew very well what the aura of heaven and earth meant. Could it be that the other party was a Nirvana martial artist? Impossible. This was completely impossible. The female Yaksha was a titled Great Emperor martial artist. Her realm was higher than Longao's. However, the aura of heaven and earth that Longao released disturbed the female Yaksha's state of mind. Once a martial artist's state of mind was disturbed, their strength would be reduced. Moreover, the female Yaksha was fighting with Longao. Unlike other martial artists, Longao wanted to end the battle quickly and was prepared to kill in one hit. Longao knew clearly that if he couldn't kill in one hit, it would give the burly man a chance. No matter what, Hao Dachuan was a demigod martial artist. It wouldn't be easy to defeat him. 9th Heaven of Demigod Realm. According to the classification of realms, the order of strength from lowest to highest was 1st Heaven Demigod Realm, 2nd Heaven Demigod Realm, 3rd Heaven Demigod Realm, 4th Heaven Demigod Realm, 5th Heaven Demigod Realm, 6th Heaven Demigod Realm, 7th Heaven Demigod Realm, 8th Heaven Demigod Realm, and 9th Heaven Demigod Realm. Above the 9th Heaven Demigod Realm was the true Supreme Tao Realm. The sword chi merged into his fists. Longao and the female Yaksha's fists fiercely collided. Sparks flew everywhere. Under normal circumstances, gold-grade Great Emperors were no match for titled Great Emperors. However, Longao's situation was completely different. With a single punch, the female Yaksha's body was sent flying. Like a kite with a broken string, the female Yaksha smashed him to death with a single punch. The hag was dead. Longao did not hold back at all in this punch. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for Longao to kill the female Yaksha with one punch. In such a situation, Longao first released the aura of heaven and earth, causing the female Yaksha's mental state to become chaotic. With the help of this, Longao merged the sword Dao into his fists. With luck and strength, he smashed the female Yaksha to death with one punch. The hag was dead. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Hao Dachuan was shocked. Black Wolf, you. He snorted coldly. Without giving Hao Dachuan any chance to speak, Longao sneered and said, "If you want to fight, then fight. If not, scram." One had to admit that Longao was very arrogant. Even if the person standing in front of him was a demigod, he still did not give a damn. If this matter were to spread out, would anyone believe it? A gold-grade Great Emperor would dare to provoke a demigod unless his brain was flooded with water. The more confident and arrogant Black Wolf was, the more uncertain Hao Dachuan was. Could it be that the other party was really fearless? Moreover, Hei Lang had just killed the female Yaksha with a single punch. His strength was clear for all to see. Hao Dachuan knew that even he himself wouldn't be able to kill a titled Great Emperor with a single punch. The strength of the female Yaksha was there for all to see. Black Wolf, do you know the consequences of killing the female Yaksha? Longao did not speak. His face was filled with disdain and disdain. So what if he was a demigod? If he was a demigod, not to mention a gold-grade Great Emperor, even if the opponent was a divine-grade Great Emperor, he would still fight. Black Wolf, it seems that you still don't know about the Massacre Abyss. Nonsense. Hao Dachuan did not seem to be angry at all. He sneered and said, "The Massacre Abyss has 5 Abyss Masters. The Eastern Abyss Master has 4 Heavenly Kings under him. The female Yaksha is the Western Heavenly King's mistress." Although Hao Dachuan did not finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. 4 Heavenly Kings? Longao was not very clear about the matters of the Massacre Abyss. He only knew that there were 5 Abyss Masters in the Massacre Abyss, and they were in charge of it together. Although he did not know, Longao was very clear that the 4 heavenly kings under the Abyss Master must be divine grade great emperors. If that was the case, it would be very troublesome. Seeing that Black Wolf did not speak, Hao Dachuan thought that the other party was afraid. When he was about to continue talking nonsense, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Just like that, he disappeared into thin air. What on earth happened? Hao Dachuan did not know how the other party did it, and how he could disappear without a trace. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. A mere gold-grade great emperor could not only kill the female yaksha with one punch, but also disappear without a trace. If they were outside, they might be afraid of Long family. But in the Slaughter Abyss, Heavenly King, when Black Wolf fought with me, he could disappear in an instant. If I'm not mistaken, I'm guessing that he must have a spatial divine item on him. There was a loud thump. Hearing Hao Dachuan's words, the West Heaven King stood up directly because he knew very well what a spatial artifact meant. Among the various types of divine artifacts, spatial divine artifacts were the most powerful. Once one had a spatial divine artifact, not to mention fighting someone of the same level, even challenging someone of a higher level wasn't impossible. Black Wolf could use a spatial divine artifact to kill an enemy of a higher level. This in itself showed how powerful the spatial divine artifact in Black Wolf's hand was. It would be a lie to say that he didn't want to get it. Even the West Heaven King was no exception. If it was just a hag, it was still unknown whether the West Heaven King would take action, because the West Heaven King's identity was there. If he condescended to deal with a person who had just stepped into the Slaughter Abyss, others would definitely say that he was bullying the weak. However, Black Wolf had a spatial divine artifact and other secrets. The West Heaven King was ready to take action to see what the other party's background was. Dachuan, where is he? Hearing the West Heaven King's words, Hao Dachuan was overjoyed. He was not a fool. He knew what the West Heaven King meant. After all, the West Heaven King didn't take action for the hag, but for temptation and greed. Heavenly King, I have sent someone to lock onto Black Wolf's position. He can't fly. He nodded. The West Heaven King thought for a moment and said, My lord has something to do with me. I have no time to spare. How about this? I will send 2 Supreme Tao warriors to go with you to catch this person. Dachuan will live up to your expectations. Hao Dachuan was full of confidence. Even if Black Wolf killed the hag and repelled him with the help of a spatial divine artifact, a great emperor was still a great emperor. It was impossible for him to compete with a Supreme Tao warrior. With a wave of his hand, the West Heaven King's figure disappeared. Hao Dachuan left the Heavenly King's residence with 2 Supreme Tao warriors, Feng Hui and Lu Chun. Both of them were Void God Realm warriors. It was more than enough to deal with a little great Emperor Realm warrior. Feng Hui and Lu Chen's faces were filled with displeasure. As martial artists of the Supreme Tao, both their status and strength were clearly displayed. But at this moment, the Heavenly King asked the 2 of them to deal with a little great Emperor Realm warrior. Moreover, the 2 of them had to join forces. Not to mention that it was a waste of talent. If this matter was spread out, where would their face go? Where would the Heavenly King's face go? Even if they were unhappy and unwilling, the Heavenly King had already given the order. The 2 of them were very clear that they had to go whether they wanted to or not. My lords, you must be careful. Although Black Wolf's strength is not very good, he has a very powerful divine ability. He even has a spatial divine artifact. Even I am no match for him. Humph, defeating you is easy. Don't talk nonsense with us. Feng Hui did not say anything nice. In the eyes of the 2 of them, they did not put Black Wolf in their eyes at all. They also did not put Hao Dachuan in their eyes. The 2 of them looked high and mighty, which made Hao Dachuan's balls ache. Similarly, even if Hao Dachuan was angry and unhappy, he did not dare to say anything. Whether it was status or strength, he was not on par with the 2 of them. In other words, if the 2 of them wanted to kill him, it would be a matter of minutes. In this way, Hao Dachuan left the Heavenly King's mansion with the 2 Supreme Tao warriors and walked towards the center of the city. After killing the female yaksha, Longao's reputation suddenly increased. Everyone who received the news was shocked. They did not know whether Black Wolf's brain was damaged or not. The female Yaksha was not very good. If the Western Heavenly King wanted to find trouble, then it would be really troublesome. If it was an ordinary person, it would be a different matter whether he cared about a woman who had a one-night stand or not. However, the other party was the Western Heavenly King. As the saying goes, before you beat a dog, you have to look at its master. If the Western Heavenly King was not willing, then wouldn't Black Wolf be dead for sure? Many people wanted to meet this Heilang. The slaughtering abyss was a mystical place. With regards to Longao's arrogance and recklessness, not only did no one despise him, many people were instead praising him. Chapter 11:24. Killing the Female Demon. Scaring Hao Dachuan away. Longao didn't just sit there and wait for his death. He wanted to know about the relationship between the female demon and the Western Sky King. If he didn't ask, he wouldn't know. Longao thought that the female demon and the Western Sky King were old friends. He didn't expect that the female demon and the Western Sky King were just having a one-night stand. Their relationship was the so-called adulterous couple. It was still unknown whether the Western Sky King would take action. Longao knew clearly that for someone of the Western Sky King's status, he had too many one-night stands. If he was biased towards everyone, the Western Sky King would die from exhaustion. If it was an ordinary person who got what they wanted, they would definitely choose to leave the massacre abyss. But what about Longao? Longao entered the massacre abyss mainly to increase his strength and strengthen himself. That was why Longao didn't expect things to go so smoothly. His cultivation base broke through smoothly from the purple grade Great Emperor realm to the peak of the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It was a qualitative leap. Even so, Longao didn't leave the massacre abyss immediately. The reason was simple. Longao was prepared to stay in the massacre abyss and continue to train. He hoped to break through with the help of the massacre abyss. It would be best if he could break through to the titled Great Emperor realm from the gold grade Great Emperor realm. It would be even better if he could break through to the demigod realm. There were dangerous people everywhere in the massacre abyss. Just because you don't provoke others doesn't mean no one will provoke you. As soon as he stepped into the tea shop, someone came looking for trouble. Since entering the massacre abyss, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of courtesy. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll kill them, no matter who they are. Longao was clear about the situation in the massacre abyss. Don't be too careful here. Once you do, the consequences would be unimaginable. By then, everyone would want to kill you. Gotcha. In the tea shop, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of courtesy. He killed the other party with a palm strike and sat down to drink his tea. Seeing this, the surrounding people fell silent. It seemed like the other party was a ruthless person. Kind people are bullied. Kind horses are ridden. Sirs, Black Wolf is inside. Outside the tea shop, Hao Dachuan brought along 2 supreme Dao martial artists and already rushed over smoothly. He sneered endlessly in his heart. This was not for the sake of the female Yaksha, but for himself. As a demigod cultivator, he was considered a top character in the massacre abyss. Yet, he had been forced back by a mere great emperor cultivator. If news of this were to spread, where would his face go? Face was still a small issue. If this matter were to spread, there would probably be people coming to cause trouble. It was precisely because of this that Hao Dachuan was prepared to borrow the power of the Western Heaven King to kill Black Wolf. Feng Hui and Lu Chun nodded their heads. From the beginning to the end, the two of them had looked down on each other. Their faces were filled with contempt and disdain. After all, the difference between a gold-grade great emperor and a supreme Dao martial artist was like heaven and earth. It could be said that the difference between the two was too great. They were not on the same level at all. Feng Hui and Lu Chun looked at each other. Lu Chun asked, "Do you want to do it, or should I?" Lu Chun's meaning was very simple. It would be too degrading if the two of them had to join forces to deal with a gold-grade great emperor cultivator. Even if they could capture this person, they would still look down on them. If news of 2 supreme Dao martial artists dealing with a gold-grade great emperor cultivator were to spread, It would be a great loss of face for them. You do it. Lu Chen nodded his head and led Hao Dachuan into the tea shop. Looking around, he immediately saw Black Wolf sitting by the window. Black Wolf, long time no see. How have you been? Seeing Hao Dachuan enter the tea shop and bring a divine Dao martial artist over, Longao was somewhat surprised in his heart. Without guessing at all, he practically already knew what the origin of this divine Dao martial artist that Hao Dachuan brought along was. Just a defeated opponent. The Western Heaven King. Longao never thought that the Western Heaven King would really intervene in this matter. It seemed like the relationship between the Western Heaven King and the female Yaksha was not simple. Otherwise, the Western Heaven King would not be so bored as to send a Supreme Dao martial artist to deal with him. A Supreme Dao martial artist. Longao was more or less afraid. With his current strength, it was already difficult for him to defeat a demigod martial artist, let alone a Supreme Dao martial artist. It was almost impossible. Defeated opponent? With just you? With a backer, Hao Dachuan was of course not afraid of the opponent. He did not continue to talk nonsense and left the battlefield to Lu Chen. No matter what, he still needed to rely on Lu Chen to defeat the opponent. You are Black Wolf? Asking when you already know the answer. Nonsense. Hearing Black Wolf's words, Hao Dachuan was shocked. He never thought that Black Wolf would dare to act like this in the face of a Supreme Dao martial artist. He was simply courting death. There were only two reasons why Black Wolf dared to act like this. Firstly, Black Wolf had nothing to fear and was not afraid of Lu Chen. Secondly, Black Wolf pretended not to be afraid, but he was actually very worried. The first reason was almost impossible. Ha ha ha. Hearing Black Wolf's words, Lu Chen laughed maniacally as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. In the entire tea shop, there were only 3 people left. The rest had disappeared without a trace. Even in the massacre abyss, a Supreme Dao martial artist was an expert among experts. Moreover, Lu Chen was in the massacre abyss. Everyone knew that Lu Chen was a subordinate of the Western Sky King. No one was willing to provoke one of the 4 Sky Kings. Black Wolf, follow me obediently. Otherwise, I will kill you without mercy. Lu Chen didn't put Longao in his eyes at all. Even if the other party's ability was strong, and he had a spatial artifact, an Emperor Realm expert was still an Emperor Realm expert. Even if he could defeat a half-god Realm expert, wanting to defeat Lu Chen was like trying to smash an egg against a rock. Would Longao agree? Lu Chen snorted coldly. With just you? Longao's figure suddenly disappeared after his voice sounded. Upon seeing this situation, forget about Hao Dachuan. Even Lu Chen's expression changed. This was because even Lu Chen was unable to understand just how the other party had done it. Sir, be careful. With Hao Dachuan beside him, even if Lu Chen was afraid, he could only act like he did not care. The aura of his spirit spread out in all directions, trying to lock onto the opponent's figure. The next moment, the dragon's breath appeared. Before the 2 of them could react, the dragon's breath had already enveloped them. Divine dragon's breath? Sensing this powerful dragon's breath, both Hao Dachuan and Lu Chen's expressions changed abruptly. Their faces were filled with disbelief because they could clearly sense how powerful this dragon's breath was. Hao Dachuan and Lu Chen did not dare to stay any longer. They immediately turned around and left. However, it was too late. Since Longao had already released the Divine Dragon's Corpse Demon, he had decided to make them stay here forever. Chapter 11:25. Divine Dragon Corpse Slave. When Longao left the Dragon Peak this time, he brought out a total of stone Divine Dragon Corpse Slaves in case of emergency. If it was outside, Longao would not casually use the Divine Dragon Corpse Slaves. After all, if the Long family knew about this, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, in the Massacre Abyss, Longao's fear was obviously less. Moreover, the person that Hao Dachuan brought this time was a genuine Supreme Dao martial artist. With his own strength, it would be a fool's dream to think that he could contend against a Supreme Dao martial artist. As such, Longao was prepared to use the Divine Dragon Corpse slaves to kill the Supreme Tao martial artist and Hao Dachuan. Two Divine Dragon Corpse slaves appeared. Without giving the two any chance, they devoured them directly. 1 against 2, Lu Chun was no match for the two Divine Dragon Corpse slaves. Outside the tea shop, the two had entered for 2 hours, but there was still no news. Feng Hui had no idea what was going on. Under normal circumstances, with Lu Chen's strength, it would be a matter of minutes to deal with a mere gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. It shouldn't be. A bad premonition arose spontaneously. Before Feng Hui could enter the tea shop, the two corpses had already flown out of the tea shop. Feng Hui was shocked. Before Feng Hui could react, he attacked and hit the two corpses away. His face instantly turned gloomy, and his heart was like a huge wave. Black Wolf, come out if you have the ability. Feng Hui was already prepared to leave at any time. After all, the other party was able to kill Lu Chun and Hao Dachuan, which proved his strength. Feng Hui was clear about Lu Chen's strength, which was about the same as his. Since Black Wolf could kill Lu Chun, he could also kill him. Was it worth it if he were to die for a hag? Longao slowly walked out of the tea shop and looked coldly at the Supreme Tao martial artist in front of him. Without guessing, he already knew who the other party was. Who are you? Black Wolf, you dare to kill the people of the Heavenly King residence. You are really reckless. Feng Hui waved his hand. Without giving the other party any chance to finish, Longao had already guessed what the other party was going to say. Longao coldly smiled and said, "If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then scram." Without waiting for Feng Hui to speak, Longao continued, "I believe that you don't wish for the two of them to die here either." Feng Hui's expression became increasingly gloomy because he did not have the slightest bit of confidence that he could defeat his opponent. "Hey Lang, the mountains will not change, and the rivers will flow forever. We will meet again. You want to leave just like that?" Hearing Black Wolf's words, Feng Hui's anger erupted like a volcano. If it weren't for the previous example, he would have attacked long ago. Under normal circumstances, for a great emperor martial artist to want to kill a divine Tao martial artist, it was practically something like a dream. Feng Hui was almost certain that the other party was a gold-grade great emperor martial artist. It seemed like Black Wolf must have used some other means to kill Lu Chun and the other man. Even so, Feng Hui was still not completely confident. "Black Wolf, what do you want?" "Don't worry, I won't kill you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be standing here now." Feng Hui did not speak because he did not know what the other party wanted to do. He could only take one step at a time. If there was really no other way, it seemed like he could only attack. In fact, Feng Hui did not know that Longao had no intention of attacking from the beginning to the end. This was because the situation inside and outside the tea shop was completely different. If he used the Divine Dragon Corpse slave here, it would be very troublesome. "Go back and tell the Western Sky King that the grudge between me and that hag has nothing to do with him. If he wants to find trouble, I'll be there any time." Scram. Scram. If it was an ordinary person, would they dare to speak to a divine Tao martial artist like that? If there weren't any previous examples, Feng Hui would have attacked long ago. After giving a cold stare, Feng Hui turned and left. In a short while, he had disappeared without a trace. The news of Black Wolf killing Lu Chun had spread throughout the city in a short while. With Lu Chun's identity and strength, could a mere gold-grade great emperor martial artist do it? No one would believe it, but the facts were right in front of them. Lu Chun's identity was not simple. He was one of the 4 heavenly kings, the subordinate of the Western Sky King. Black Wolf killed Lu Chun so openly. Wasn't he not giving face to the Western Sky King? Black Wolf was doomed. No matter how powerful Black Wolf was, it was impossible for him to compete with the Western Sky King. As everyone knew, the 4 heavenly kings under the Eastern Abyss Master were all supreme divine Tao martial artists. Ordinary people would not dare to provoke them in the city. As for Black Wolf's identity, it had been found out. He was just a person who had just stepped into the massacre abyss. Was he out of his mind, or was he reckless to provoke the Western Sky King? The recent topics in the massacre abyss were all about Black Wolf and the Western Sky King. Everyone was looking forward to seeing how the Western Sky King was going to deal with Black Wolf. "How's the thing I asked you to do?" Longao found the fat man and the thin man and asked straightforwardly. The fat man nodded and said with a smile, "During this time, the two of us didn't stop at all and finally bought a detached courtyard. The place is not very big. Big brother, you know it." Longao waved his hand and stopped the two of them. Longao was very clear about the situation in the massacre abyss. It was almost impossible to buy a huge house in the city. At the very least, it was not something that the two of them could do. It was already a good thing that the fat man and the thin man could buy a detached courtyard. Next, Longao followed the two to the so-called detached courtyard. After all, the location was remote. It was not a good place at first glance, but there were a lot of people around. "Big brother, according to the city rules, as long as we register to buy a detached courtyard, no one can take it away. However, if someone wants to come and make trouble, the 5 Abyss Masters will not ask much." After entering the courtyard, Longao looked around and discovered that this courtyard was indeed very lousy. However, to be able to obtain a courtyard in such a short period of time was already not a simple matter. "Big brother, there's something, I don't know if we should ask." "Say it." "Big brother, we heard that you killed Lu Chun and Hao Dachuan. Is this true?" So it was about this. Since things had come to this point, Longao did not hide anything. He nodded and said, "That's right." Although the two of them were very surprised by their big brother's strength, they were more or less very worried. No matter what, the backer behind Lu Chun was the Western Sky King. They knew what the consequences would be if they provoked the Western Sky King. Without asking or guessing, Longao already knew what the two were thinking. He said, "Do you know the Western Sky King?" "Big brother, we know a little about him. Do you want to know?" Chapter 11:26. Tell me about it. What does Big Brother want? The fat man and the thin man had a feeling that the big brother in front of them seemed to be provoking the Western Sky King. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Big brother is a bit too strong. The two were more or less looking forward to it. If Big Brother was really stronger than the Western Sky King, then he would have a place in the city. This was not necessarily a bad thing for them. "Big brother, the 4 heavenly kings are all subordinates of the Eastern Abyss Lord. According to the rumors, the 4 heavenly kings are all Supreme Divine Path martial artists." Supreme Divine Path? Longao's heart sank. He had always guessed that the 4 heavenly kings should be Supreme Divine Path martial artists, which was to say, Divine Realm martial artists. But he never thought that the 4 heavenly kings were Supreme Divine Path martial artists. Supreme Divine Path and Supreme Divine Path were two different concepts. "Big brother, you killed Lu Chun. If there is no accident, the Western Sky King will definitely not let this go." How could Longao not know what the fat man said? Not to mention whether the Western Sky King valued Lu Chun or not, just the matter of face, he believed that the Western Sky King would not let this go. In the Western Sky King's residence, in the main hall, after listening to Feng Hui's report, the Western Sky King's face was gloomy to the extreme. It was as ugly as it could be. Black Wolf was completely provoking him. If he didn't do anything, once this matter spread out, where would his face go? "Heavenly King, what should we do now? Have you found out Black Wolf's identity?" How could Feng Hui not know what the Western Sky King meant? "Heavenly King, I can assert that Black Wolf's identity is very simple. He is just a disciple of a long family. Maybe he has a powerful spatial artifact, but his strength is only a gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. However, Black Wolf is not afraid of my Heavenly King residence. It seems that he has something to rely on." "Say it." Feng Hui thought for a moment, and finally said, "Heavenly King, there are 5 Abyss Lords in the Massacre Abyss. I guess Black Wolf is under the command of another Abyss Lord. Otherwise, Black Wolf alone doesn't seem to dare to do this." The West Heavenly King did not speak, because he had almost understood what Feng Hui meant. These words were not without reason. It was impossible for He Lang to be so arrogant as to casually provoke him, unless He Lang had a backer. Just as Feng Hui had said, there were 5 Abyss Lords in the Massacre Abyss. Heavenly King, are we going to deal with Black Wolf now? Kill. The West Heavenly King said coldly, I don't care who the other party is. If he dares to challenge my Heavenly King mansion, I will kill him without mercy. Heavenly King, I'll make the arrangements now. He waved his hand. The West Heaven King sneered and said, I'll meet this person in person. Feng Hui was shocked when he heard the Heavenly King's words. He never thought that the Western Heavenly King would personally take action for a black wolf. It was obvious that the Western Heavenly King valued this person very much. Since the West Heaven King had already made up his mind, Feng Hui did not dare to say anything more. In the courtyard, Fatty and Skinny were no longer around. Longao sat alone in the courtyard, thinking about various things in his mind. Big Brother Long, with your current strength, you are simply not a match for a supreme divine Dao martial artist. He nodded, looking at Bai Ling, who suddenly appeared in front of him. How could Long Ao not know that a supreme divine Dao martial artist was a super existence above the divine Dao? With his current strength, it was almost impossible to fight a supreme divine Dao martial artist. Long Ao could almost assert that as the grudge between him and the Heavenly King Mansion continued to escalate, he believed that it was not impossible for the Western Heavenly King to personally take action. Above the Divine Tao was the Supreme Divine Tao, the Nirvana Realm, and finally the Peak Tao Comprehension. Long Ao still didn't know how the Supreme Divine Tao was divided into realms. Bai Ling, I want to ask, how is the Supreme Divine Tao above the 5 realms of the Divine Tao divided into strength? Big Brother Long, you don't know? He nodded. If he knew, he wouldn't ask. Big Brother Long, above the 5 realms of the Divine Tao are the 4 Supreme Realms. Sure enough, Long Ao had already guessed that the Supreme Divine Tao was just a general name, just like the Divine Tao Realm. The 5 realms of the Divine Tao were divided into the Void God Realm, the Spirit Condensation Realm, the Human God Realm, the Earth God Realm, and the Celestial God Realm. Bai Ling, what are the 4 Supreme Realms? Big Brother Long, the 4 Supreme Realms are the Divine King Realm, the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. The 4 Supreme Realms were the Divine King Realm, the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. After listening to Bai Ling's words, Long Ao was very surprised, because he didn't expect that above the 4 Supreme Realms of the Divine Tao, there were the Divine Emperor Realm, the Hierarch Realm, and the Divine Emperor Realm. Long Ao didn't know which realm the 4 Heavenly Kings were in. Big Brother Long, forgive me for being blunt, your current strength is really low. I have already sensed that there are many experts in this place. If you want to train here, you will encounter danger at all times. Long Ao didn't speak, because he had thought about the problem of strength countless times, but it was not an easy thing to improve his strength quickly. Long Ao was clear about this point, and Bai Ling was also clear about it. However, the path of cultivation itself was against the heavens. One needed to consolidate at every step, one step at a time. Otherwise, there would be no benefit in rushing for quick success. For warriors, the consequences were very serious. If he cultivated according to normal circumstances, not to mention the Nirvana realm, just the demigod realm, he didn't know how long it would take to break through. Long Ao was very clear that with his current strength, it was really not an easy thing to establish a foothold in the Massacre Abyss. If it was just fighting against Divine Tao warriors, Long Ao had full confidence. No matter what, he still had 10 Divine Dragon Corpse slaves. As long as it wasn't a Divine God who came personally, he would kill one if one came, and destroy 2 if one came. If a Divine God or a Supreme Divine Tao warrior came, how would he deal with it? Big Brother Long, Bai Ling, go back? With a deep sigh, Bai Ling knew very well why Big Brother Long wanted her to go back. With no other choice, Bai Ling turned into a white light and instantly returned to the god-killing sword. As soon as Bai Ling's figure disappeared, a figure appeared. It was none other than the West Sky King. Without guessing, Long Ao almost knew that the middle-aged man who just appeared in front of him was one of the 4 Heavenly Kings, the West Sky King. You are Black Wolf? Yes, you are the West Sky King? Ha ha ha, what an arrogant kid, Black Wolf. Do you know where this is? Nonsense, asking the obvious. Longao looked coldly at the middle-aged man in front of him and said with a smile, West Sky King, let's be frank. Although you and I haven't met, there is already a grudge between us. Cut the crap. What do you want to say this time? You don't have to take off your pants and fart. P.S. Today's 3 chapters, tomorrow's Monday. Everyone, get your tickets ready to see Xiao Jia's explosive power. Chapter 11:27. Boy, you should know who I am, yet you still dare to talk to me like this. I have to admire your courage. He waved his hand. Longao really didn't want to continue listening. He could almost guess what the West Heavenly King would say next. West Heavenly King, I killed the hag and Lu Chon. You just want to avenge them. Why talk so much nonsense? Some surprise, some admiration. The West Heavenly King shook his head and said, Black Wolf, I can spare your life, and you can still be popular here in the future. Longao didn't speak, because he wanted to hear what the West Heavenly King was up to. Things were definitely not that simple. Black Wolf, hand over the spatial artifact in your hand. So that was it. Longao had already guessed that the West Heavenly King wouldn't be so easy to talk to. It turned out that he wanted the dragon seal space in his hand. Was that possible? He looked at him coldly, his face full of disdain and contempt. West Heavenly King, do you believe that you will end up like Lu Chun and the hag? Black Wolf's words directly stunned the West Heavenly King. Black Wolf's fearlessness made the West Heavenly King a little uncertain. Did he really have something to rely on? A gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. Feng Hui's perception was right. Black Wolf in front of him was indeed just a gold-grade Great Emperor martial artist. With his strength, it was almost a matter of minutes to kill the other party. Are you afraid? The dignified West Heavenly King was intimidated by a little Great Emperor martial artist. If this matter was spread out, no one would choose to believe it. Trash. Black Wolf, you're courting death. The West Heavenly King didn't continue to sit still. Things had already reached this point. If he still didn't say anything, wouldn't he be looked down upon by the other party? The West Heavenly King didn't believe that the other party was really so powerful. After all, killing a Supreme Dao martial artist and killing a Supreme Dao martial artist were 2 different concepts. There was no way out. This time, the West Heavenly King came to deal with Longao. He couldn't go back empty-handed. He took 3 steps back. Just when the West Sky King was wondering what the other party wanted to do, an old man suddenly appeared in front of Black Wolf. There was no expression on the old man's face, and he didn't seem to be using any power. He was just like an ordinary person. Was this what Black Wolf was relying on? The West Heaven King's face turned cold, and he slammed his palm toward the old man. No matter what, the old man was standing in front of Black Wolf. If they wanted to kill Black Wolf, they would have to step over the old man first. The Western Sky King was very confident in his own strength. Unless the 5 Abyss Lords came in person, no one was his match. The West Heaven King's strength and identity were all there. The old man didn't dodge. He just stood there quietly. It was soft. The Western Sky King's face suddenly changed as he slammed his palm on the old man's body. He thought that this palm was enough to take the old man's life. But what was the result? The old man was as steady as Mount Tai. It was as if his palm had struck cotton. There was not the slightest fluctuation of power. The Western Sky King withdrew his palm and retreated. His face was full of disbelief. He didn't know who the old man in front of him was. He believed that only the Lord of the Abyss could contend with such strength. In other words, the old man in front of him was a Nirvana warrior? Impossible. Completely impossible. As everyone knew, there were only 5 Abyss Lords in the Massacre Abyss. They were their lords. Apart from them, there hadn't been a new Nirvana warrior in the Massacre Abyss for a long time. Otherwise, the situation of the Massacre Abyss would have changed long ago. Who are you? The old man didn't speak. May I ask who you are? My lord is the Lord of the Eastern Abyss. The old man still didn't speak. In the eyes of the West Heaven King, the old man's arrogance had shown that he didn't take him seriously at all. He had the right to be arrogant. With the old man's strength, changing the situation of the Massacre Abyss was not a problem. Clasping his fist, the West Heaven King said, "The green mountains will not change and the green water will flow forever. We will meet again someday." After that, the West Heaven King turned and left. After a while, he had disappeared without a trace. Looking at the disappearing figure, Longao breathed a long sigh of relief. As expected of one of the four heavenly kings, the West Heaven King was very powerful. With his strength, he didn't even have a chance to fight back. Even if he used 10 divine dragon corpse slaves, it was impossible to be the West Heaven King's opponent. It was difficult to make up for the gap in realm with other things. The old man Longao summoned this time was the 5 elements slave given to him by the 5 elements patriarch. It was a piece of cake for him to be able to contend against a Nirvana realm martial artist and a Supreme Divine Path martial artist. That was why Longao directly used the 5 elements slave. According to the 5 elements patriarch, the defense of the 5 elements clan was unparalleled in the world. Even if a Nirvana realm martial artist took action, it was impossible to repel the 5 elements slave. Unless it was a super expert like the 5 elements patriarch, it would be the way of the heavens and the marvelous mathematician. As expected, the 5 elements clan really resisted the West Heaven King. In this way, Longao could be sure that the West Heaven King would not come again without full confidence, unless he invited the Lord of the Abyss. Even if the Lord of the Abyss came, what could he do? He couldn't resist, but the 5 elements slave could. In this way, not to mention the West Heaven King, even if the Lord of the Abyss came in person, he still wouldn't be afraid. With the help of the 5 elements slave, he could do whatever he wanted in the massacre abyss. Looking at the 5 elements slave in front of him, Longao was a little helpless. If the 5 elements slave could fight back, then not to mention the massacre abyss, he could even do whatever he wanted in the entire Tianwu continent. After repelling the West Heaven King this time, Longao could almost be sure that the West Heaven King would definitely not let it go. The biggest possibility was that the West Heaven King would ask for help from the backer behind him, which was the so-called Lord of the Abyss. Longao had already thought about it. If he left the massacre abyss now and returned to the Tianwu continent, it wouldn't be of much use. It was better to stay in the massacre abyss. If he could dominate the massacre abyss, then wouldn't he have the qualifications to enter the Tianwu continent? Longao was very clear in his heart that with the strength of a dragon sect, even with 500 divine dragon corpse slaves, it would be very difficult for them to rise in the sky martial continent. If they had the help of the massacre abyss, then everything would be different. The massacre abyss had a total of 5 lords of the abyss. If he wanted to dominate the massacre abyss, the first thing he had to do was to deal with the 5 lords of the abyss. It was easy to think about, but it was extremely difficult to do it. In any case, the 5 elements slave could only fight against a Nirvana realm martial artist. It was almost impossible to kill a Nirvana realm martial artist. According to the 5 elements ancestor, the 5 elements slave only knew how to defend and didn't know how to attack. In any case, the best way to dominate the massacre abyss was to first establish his own force. In this way, he could lay the foundation for the future. Chapter 11:28. In the Slaughter Abyss. In the city, the news that Black Wolf defeated the West Heaven King had spread throughout the Slaughter Abyss in the blink of an eye. Everyone who received the news turned pale with fright. Who was the West Heaven King? As everyone knew, the West Heaven King was one of the 4 heavenly kings under the Lord of the Eastern Abyss. The West Heaven King's identity and strength were obvious. A person who had just stepped into the Slaughter Abyss, unless he was out of his mind, would not seek his own death. Who on earth was Black Wolf? Everyone in the city was speculating, wanting to know who was behind Longao. Otherwise, would Black Wolf dare to do this? Provoking the West Heaven King was equivalent to provoking the Lord of the Abyss. It was impossible for Black Wolf not to know this. The Slaughter Abyss was shocked. In less than 2 days, Black Wolf's reputation had spread throughout the Slaughter Abyss. The Slaughter Abyss was a very realistic world. Here, everyone respected the strong. Black Wolf could kill Lu Chun and scare away the West Heaven King, which was recognized by everyone. Not only was no one despised, but everyone respected him. For such a world, Longao still liked it very much in his heart. The people in the slaughter abyss were at least realistic, unlike the people outside who were hypocritical. In the Abyss Mansion, in the main hall, there were 5 lords of the Abyss. This mansion was the headquarters of Hong Lingtong, the Lord of the Eastern Abyss. As the Lord of the Abyss, both his identity and strength were there. Hong Lingtong looked very arrogant, fat, and 2 meters tall. My lord, what I just said is true. That old man is very powerful. If I'm not mistaken, the old man's strength should be in the Nirvana realm. He was not moved at all. Hong Lingtong sat lazily in his seat, sweating all over. No one knew why. I already know about Black Wolf. Before the West Heaven King could speak, Hong Lingtong continued, he can't do anything right. He was startled. The West Heaven King was so scared that he didn't dare to say a word. He stood there trembling. The Western Sky King knew very well what the Lord of the Abyss meant. If the Lord of the Abyss was unhappy, he could kill him at any time. After all, it was only a matter of minutes for the Lord of the Abyss to create a heavenly king. According to what you said, the other party should be a Nirvana stage martial artist. How many years has it been since a new Nirvana stage martial artist appeared in the Massacre Abyss? Hong Lingtong looked fine on the surface, but he was already extremely fearful in his heart. According to what the West Heaven King had just said, the other party's strength was unfathomable. Even he was not 100% sure that he was a match for the other party. Sir, what should we do now? Let's wait and see. Inform our men not to provoke Black Wolf. I want to see what the other 4 will do. The West Sky King was not a fool. He instantly understood what the Lord of the Deep Caves meant, getting someone else to do the dirty work. At the end of the day, Hong Lingtong was not confident enough to deal with Black Wolf, so he wanted to borrow the power of the other 4 lords of the Deep Caves to kill him. Yes, sir. He waved his hand. Seeing that Hong Lingtong was unhappy, the West Sky King did not dare to continue talking nonsense. He turned around and slowly retreated. Hong Lingtong was the only one left in the entire hall. After the West Sky King left, Hong Lingtong's face instantly turned gloomy because he knew very well what it meant to have a Nirvana stage martial artist suddenly appear in the Massacre Abyss. Once another Nirvana stage martial artist appeared, the pattern of the Massacre Abyss would be completely broken, and his territory would be divided. It seems that I have to look for the 4 of them. 2 hours later, in the center of a small lake, inside a huge pavilion, the 5 lords of the Massacre Abyss were Hong Lingtong, the Lord of the East Abyss, Yang Ling, the Lord of the South Abyss, Luo Qingfeng, the Lord of the West Abyss, the Lord of the North Abyss, and the Lord of the Middle Abyss, Yichun. The 5 of them were the most powerful people in the Massacre Abyss. Usually, the 5 of them would hardly gather together. The 5 of them usually fought openly and secretly. Everyone wanted to kill the other 4, so that they could completely dominate the Massacre Abyss. Hong Lingtong, we've heard the news about Black Wolf. According to what you said just now, it seems that the old man next to Black Wolf should be a Nirvana stage martial artist. I really didn't expect that after so many years, the Massacre Abyss would attract another Nirvana stage martial artist. The 5 of them looked a little solemn, because at this moment, none of them knew the strength of the Nirvana stage martial artist next to Black Wolf. Tell me, what should we do now? Everyone should know that the pattern of the Massacre Abyss hasn't changed for many years. This time, a new Nirvana stage martial artist has appeared. If this person has the strength of a Nirvana stage martial artist, Yichun, the Lord of the Middle Abyss, paused and continued. If the pattern changes, all 5 of our territories will be divided again. Why don't the 5 of us work together to kill this person? Each of them had their own ulterior motives. The 5 of them wanted to kill each other, so of course, they were not willing to work together. If it were not for the appearance of a new Nirvana stage martial artist, the 5 of them would not sit together at all. The strength of the 5 of them was about the same. Otherwise, the Massacre Abyss would have been unified long ago. Seeing that the 4 of them did not speak, Yichun's expression did not look too good. This was because almost no one responded to his suggestion. However, what did it mean? Forgive me for saying this. Hong Lingtong said at this time, Black Wolf dares to stir up trouble in the city and look down on the 5 of us. It seems that he has a strong backing. If the old man next to this person is stronger than you and me, how should we deal with him? The four of them nodded. Hong Lingtong's meaning was clear. Hong Lingtong was afraid because what he said was true. Black Wolf had a strong backing and openly provoked the five lords of the abyss. This in itself was a problem. It would be a lie to say that they were not afraid. Hong Lingtong, are we going to give up just like that? Choosing to give up was equivalent to agreeing to change the pattern of the massacre abyss and giving up territory for no reason. Who among the five of them would be willing to do that? For a moment, the pavilion was silent. None of the five lords of the abyss said anything. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. They could neither advance nor retreat. It could be said that they were in a dilemma. Tell me, what should we do? If we give up so easily, whether you're willing or not, I'm not willing. How about this? Let's test the other party's strength first. If he's really strong, we'll take a step back. What do you think? Of course, the other four understood what Hong Lingtong meant. Since things had come to this point, the four of them could only nod in agreement. In this way, the five lords of the abyss got up and left, ready to test the strength of the old man next to Black Wolf to see if he was really that strong. Chapter 11:29. The Massacre Abyss. Less than 3 days after Black Wolf scared off the Western Sky King, a new force quietly rose. Dragon Sect. Someone dared to casually establish a force in the Massacre Abyss. It was simply courting death. The more Longao acted like this, the more everyone talked about it. They all thought that Black Wolf was fearless and must have a powerful backer behind him. The news spread. Black Wolf was just a gold great emperor martial artist. No matter how one looked at it, it was impossible for Black Wolf to scare off the Western Sky King, let alone establish a new force casually. Black Wolf's meaning was already very clear. Those with discerning eyes had already guessed what Black Wolf meant. He wanted nothing more than to establish his own order in the Massacre Abyss and even become the sixth Abyss Master. If it were someone else, everyone would definitely despise, ridicule, and even curse them. But what about Black Wolf? Not only did Black Wolf behead Lu Chun, but he even scared off the Western Sky King. This had already shown his attitude, which was to provoke the Abyss Masters. The development of Dragon Sect was very fast. Black Wolf's fame had spread. Many people who were not from the 5 Abyss Masters had come. In just 3 days, there were already hundreds of people in Dragon Sect. At this rate of development, it wouldn't take long for Dragon Sect to become a major force. Fatty and Skinny became the 2 protectors of Dragon Sect, specializing in the development of Dragon Sect. In the city, there were no sects or clans. In the entire city, there were only 5 Abyss Masters, the so-called 5 major forces. The Dragon Sect established by Black Wolf was not recognized by the 5 Abyss Masters and was established casually. One could imagine what the result would be. In fact, everyone was watching, wanting to see the development of Dragon Sect later. The Western Sky King's defeat did not mean that the 5 Abyss Masters were also defeated. If Dragon Sect could contend with the 5 Abyss Masters, then the development speed of Dragon Sect would increase by hundreds of times. The base camp of Dragon Sect was in the courtyard. However, the current solitary courtyard was no longer the same as it was in the past. It was dozens of times larger because Longao had purchased the entire surrounding area of the solitary courtyard. If it was the previous Longao, it wouldn't have been easy to purchase it. However, the Longao had killed Lu Chun and scared off the Western Sky King. Many people would give Longao face. In the Slaughter Abyss, the strong were respected. Everyone respected the strong. Master, what should we do now? At this moment, the fat man and the skinny man were extremely excited. Until now, the 2 of them had never thought that things would develop to this point. Without Big Brother's help, the 2 of them might not even be able to enter the city, let alone have their current status. Let's wait and see. You guys can leave. Seeing that the master had something on his mind, Fatty and Skinny didn't dare to stay any longer. They turned and left. Big Brother Long. The 5 lords of the abyss won't let this matter rest. How could Longao not know what Bai Ling meant? I want to wait for the 5 lords of the abyss to come. That way, I'll have a firm foothold in the Slaughter Abyss. Bai Ling was very curious, not knowing what he meant. After all, Bai Ling knew very well that with Big Brother Long's strength, it was impossible for him to be a match for the 5 Lords of the Abyss. He couldn't even defeat a divine martial artist, let alone a nirvana martial artist. The difference between a great emperor martial artist was too great. Bai Ling, although I can't defeat the 5 Lords of the Abyss with my strength, I have the 5 elemental slaves. Even if all 5 Lords of the Abyss are here, I'm not afraid. As long as I don't make a move, I believe the 5 Lords of the Abyss will be intimidated. Longao's meaning was very simple. He just wanted to intimidate the 5 Lords of the Abyss. There was no other way. The 5 elemental slaves could only defend and not attack. Big Brother Long. If the 5 Lords of the Abyss aren't intimidated, then you'll be in danger. Longao nodded. Longao was also very clear about this. The 5 elemental slaves could ignore the attacks of nirvana martial artists. If the 5 Lords of the Abyss learned of this, or if they tested it out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Everything had to be tried. Longao had already decided. In any case, success or failure depended on this. If he failed to intimidate the 5 Lords of the Abyss, he would immediately leave the Massacre Abyss and return to the Martial Heaven continent. Once they were intimidated, then his dragon sect would be able to stabilize in the Massacre Abyss and slowly develop. There would be a day when they could suppress the 5 Lords of the Abyss and dominate the Massacre Abyss. Bai Ling, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Saying that he wasn't worried was a lie. Bai Ling and Xiling's figures appeared at the same time. Stopping Bai Ling, Xiling said, Longao, I know what you mean. Just now, my sister said that this battle concerns your life and death. You have to think carefully. Towards Purple Spirit's concern, Longao was more or less not used to it. Not long ago, Xiling had been constantly chasing after him. I've already made my decision. Xiling and Bai Ling exchanged a glance. Since Longao had already made his decision, there was no need for them to say anything more. Longao, even if the 5 Lords of the Abyss are intimidated by you, what are you going to do next? Stabilize first, then develop the dragon sect. Are you going to stay here forever? Longao had already heard Xiling's meaning. He shrugged helplessly. I know what you mean. With my current strength, even if I return to the Martial Heaven continent, I won't be of much use. It's better to stay here. Other than developing the dragon sect, I can also temper myself and strive to break through to the demigod realm. With your talent and potential, it'll take you at least 2 years to break through to the divine realm. Longao was very clear that Xiling was telling the truth. Whether or not he could break through to the divine realm in 2 years was still unknown. After all, cultivation had to be done step by step. If he rushed for instant success, the consequences would be unimaginable. 2 years wasn't a long time, but it wasn't a short time either. His family in the 9 provinces continent had 500 divine dragon corpse slaves protecting them. He trusted that there wouldn't be any problems in the short term. As for the dragon sect's branch on the Martial Heaven continent, with his big brother and Dugu Bai's abilities, they would be able to develop it step by step. Even if I can't break through to the divine realm, I'll only leave the Slaughter Abyss after reaching the 9th heaven stage. At that time, I'll bring the entire Slaughter Abyss with me. Xiling and Bai Ling didn't say anything. Their meaning was very simple. They didn't dare to believe it. After all, the power of the 5 Lords of the Abyss was there for all to see. Even if Longao broke through to the divine realm, so what? The gap between divine realm experts and nirvana experts was too great. They weren't even on the same level, let alone 5 nirvana experts. Chapter 11:30. Longao, how's your sword Dao cultivation going? My sword Dao can almost kill martial artists of the same level in seconds. I believe I can even kill a titled Great Emperor martial artist directly. Sword Dao. Longao was looking forward to it. Longao, forgive me for being blunt, but your physique is very suitable for cultivating sword Dao. Don't try to take over. Longao was certainly aware of Xiling's good intentions. They're finally here. At this moment, Longao's expression changed. He leaped out. Above the Massacre Abyss City, Looking at the 5 people in front of him, Longao already knew who they were. The 5 Abyss Lords of the Massacre Abyss were the so-called East Abyss Lord Honglingtong, the South Abyss Lord Yangling, the West Abyss Lord Luo Qingfeng, the North Abyss Lord, and the Middle Abyss Lord Yichun. Looks like you're the Black Wolf. After taking a look, Longao asked in return, so what if I am arrogant? He was so arrogant even in the face of 5 Abyss Lords. If word of this got out, who knew if anyone would choose to believe it? That was exactly the case. The 5 Abyss Lords were also a little surprised. For so many years, no one dared to do this. Facing the 5 of them at the same time, it was already good enough that he was not scared to the ground. The more Longao acted like this, the more uncertain the 5 Abyss Lords were. Was Black Wolf really that awesome? In the next second, an old man appeared beside Longao. It was none other than the 5 Elements slave. Seeing the old man, the 5 Abyss Lords were more or less wary because the West Sky King's palm strike was like hitting cotton. There was no doubt that this person's cultivation had reached the so-called Nirvana realm. As for his strength, they really did not know until they fought. The more mysterious the other party was, the more wary the 5 were. The more wary they were, the more they did not dare to make a move casually. Black Wolf, I'm very curious about your identity. Who are you? Honglingtong, Lord of the Eastern Abyss. The Lu Chun you killed was my subordinate. Longao nodded with an indifferent expression. From Longao's expression, it was as if he didn't care about the other party at all, causing the 5 of them to feel a headache. My identity is very simple, but there is no need to tell you. Without giving the 5 of them any chance, Longao continued, let's get straight to the point. This time, when I entered the Slaughter Abyss, I don't want to become enemies with the 5 of you. As long as you open up a path for me, from now on, we will mind our own business. How arrogant. The 5 snorted coldly at the same time. Black Wolf, you want to enter the Massacre Abyss? I want to ask you, with just you? What right do you have? Longao had already guessed their attitude, so he wasn't surprised at all. He calmly looked at the 5 people in front of him. On what basis? If they could win, they would eliminate the source of trouble and directly obliterate the 2 of them. If they could not win, they would change the structure of the city and thus the structure of the entire Massacre Abyss. 5 Lords of the Abyss would become 6 Lords of the Abyss. No one was willing to see such an outcome. Attack at the same time. The 5 Lords of the Abyss communicated through their spiritual senses. In a one-on-one situation, they really did not have full confidence that they could defeat the other party. Although the 5 of them knew that they could not afford to lose face if they fought 5 against 1, they had no other choice in this situation. In an instant, the 5 of them had all rushed out. Before they arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already fiercely pressed down. The aura of heaven and earth was the unique aura of Nirvana martial artists. When the 5 Nirvana martial artists joined forces, the 5 auras of heaven and earth layered on top of each other. One could imagine how powerful it was. Longao did not move, nor could he move. Because with his strength, not to mention 1 against 5, even if it was one-on-one, he would be instantly killed by the other party. The 5 Lords of the Abyss were shocked. They never thought that the other party's strength would be so strong. Just the aura of heaven and earth alone was no small matter. However, the battle had already reached this point. The 5 of them had no way to retreat. They could only brace themselves and fight. The 5 of them joined forces, and the 5 of them turned into palm energy and fiercely struck the old man. Not dodging? What did the old man mean? Wasn't he a little too arrogant? Chapter 11:31. The old man didn't dodge, but the 5 didn't show any mercy. All 5 of their palms landed on the 5 Elements slave. If it was an ordinary Nirvana realm martial artist fighting 1 against 5 and being hit by all 5 at the same time, he would definitely die. But the 5 Elements slave situation was completely different. It felt like cotton. Seeing that the other party didn't have the slightest reaction, the 5 Lords of the Abyss faces all changed, as if they had seen a ghost. They withdrew their palms and retreated. You. Get lost. Longao's voice was cold, as if it came from hell. If the Longao from before had said this, the five of them would have despised and even ridiculed him. But now, the five elements slave withstood a blow from the five lords of the abyss, which in itself already showed the old man's strength. The five of them thought that even the five of them couldn't be a match for the other party. Nirvana rebirth. The five of them thought at the same time, Nirvana rebirth, and the five of them knew very well what Nirvana rebirth meant. The five of them looked very ugly. There was no other way. They had already lost this battle, and if they continued to fight, the possibility of losing was the greatest. The five of them turned and left. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared without a trace. Looking at the five figures gradually disappearing, Longao let out a long sigh of relief. In the end, the five of them were intimidated this time. Otherwise, if the five of them continued to attack, the five elements slaves' flaw of only defending and not attacking would definitely be exposed. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, the five of them were intimidated by the five elements slaves' strong defense after only one attack. In the distance, the five of them were also very surprised. Although the five of them had guessed that the other party's strength was definitely not simple, they never thought that the other party's strength would be so strong that he could withstand their joint attack. If the other party chose to take the initiative to attack with such powerful strength, what would the five of them do? I can almost say that the other party's strength has reached Nirvana rebirth. Even if the five of us join forces, we are no match for him. No wonder Black Wolf is so arrogant. He has nothing to fear. Hearing Hong Lingtong's words, the other four lords of the abyss nodded in agreement. Then what should we do now? We can only choose to compromise. Compromise? The five of them sighed inwardly. As the abyss masters of the massacre abyss, whether it was status or strength, the five of them had never thought of compromising from the beginning to the end. If word of this got out, they would lose a lot of face. Would it work if he didn't compromise? The other party's strength was already there. If they were to meet force with force, there would only be two results. One was that the five of them would be killed, and the other was that both sides would suffer. The five of them didn't want either outcome. With no other choice, the five of them finally chose to compromise. The news that Longao had scared off the five lords of the deep caves hadn't spread, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the five lords of the deep caves hadn't said anything even though the dragon sect had been established for 10 days. What was the meaning of that? In other words, the five lords of the abyss had already acknowledged the existence of the dragon sect. In other words, the five lords of the abyss had chosen to compromise. Was that even possible? No one was willing to believe that the five lords of the deep caves would take the initiative to compromise. If it weren't for the fact that the dragon sect still existed intact, no one would choose to believe it at all. This time, everyone joined the dragon sect. In just one day, the speed of the dragon sect's development skyrocketed by hundreds of times. From 100 people at the beginning, it had directly grown to nearly 3,000 people. Such a development speed could be said to be very terrifying. However, the massacre abyss wasn't like the outside world. The base number of people in the massacre abyss wasn't that large. Therefore, to grow to 3,000 people in one day was already very terrifying. The scale of the dragon sect was also expanding. From the beginning, it was a single courtyard, but now it had expanded by hundreds of times. From now on, there was another force in the massacre abyss, and that was the dragon sect. Longao, you're really lucky. This time, you actually managed to scare the five lords of the deep caves. He nodded. Longao had always been confident in his luck. However, being able to scare the five of them this time, apart from luck, the five element slaves' contribution was the greatest. The five element slaves' defensive power was really terrifying. 1 against 5, and he managed to withstand it. But now that he thought about it, he was a little scared. No matter what, the five element slave could only defend and couldn't attack. If the five of them continued to attack, they would definitely be exposed. He seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. Xiling thought for a moment and said, Longao, no matter who it is, even if it's a Nirvana warrior, if the first attack doesn't succeed, and the five-element slave doesn't react at all, they will be scared out of their wits. Even you and I would be the same. He nodded. Longao was very clear about what Xiling meant. If nothing unexpected happens, the five lords of the deep caves won't act rashly. In the short term, we can develop the dragon sect as much as we want. Longao, have you ever thought that even if your dragon sect develops, without a super powerhouse to oversee it, it will always be a paper tiger? There's no other way.